Call the December 3rd, 2014 meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission to order. Paula, will you please call the roll?
Alan Brown. Jennifer Warren. Heather Clemmer.
Present.
Neela Crane Clements. Greg Eddington.
Present.
George Massey.
Present.
Mary Jo Meacham.
Present.
Jeffrey Parks.
Present.
Ann Zacharitz.
Present.
Thank you.
You have a quorum.
That was not Paula, but
Yeah,
thank you.
I will interject that this is Justin, and he's relatively new, not really that new of a staff person, but he's new to HP and is training to provide some backup for Paula. So.
Right. I am your vice chair, but I am serving in charge today, so here we go. Running through a bit of the meeting process, one speaker at a time, please come to the podium. I will recognize you as you're here. Do not approach the podium until it's vacated by the previous speaker. Please introduce yourself clearly and be sure and print your name and address on there's a form at the podium. Please print your name and address there. Speaking to the mic, we are on TV, live TV, so make sure that TV Land can hear you and that we've recorded what you've said for posterity. Limit your remarks to 5 minutes. The Commission will not review documentation submitted during the meeting until the next available meeting. Our intent is not to design from the horseshoe, and so we ask that you please respect that. It's unnecessary to repeat testimony previously given by others. Please direct all questions, comments, and testimony to the Commission, and please put your cell phones on silent or just turn them off. Thank you. All right, Historic Preservation Officer.
First, we want to welcome our newest member to the Commission, Greg Eddington. This is his first meeting with us. He was appointed in November, so welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
A reminder to everyone that there'll be a Commission and committee-wide workshop on December 12th from 8:30 to 1 at the Cox Convention Center, and we'll send out reminder emails about that for everyone. And that'll be all of the city's different design review commissions and committees. And then just a brief follow-up on our realtor workshop that we reported on previously. That was held a couple of weeks ago and was, despite being on the snow day, was a big success. We had about 30 people attend. It was really well received, and we hope to do that again in the spring. And that's all I have.
Thank you. All right, minutes from the previous meeting, from the November 5th meeting. Does anyone have any comments or corrections? Otherwise, I'd be happy to entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
A motion from Heather Clemmer and a second by George Massey to approve. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Those are approved. Code enforcement report.
Hello, I'm Joseph Cobb, City of Oklahoma City Code Enforcement Inspector. I'm filling in at the moment as the HP Inspector. If you guys have any questions, see if I can answer anything.
Anybody have any questions or comments today? All right, thank you for your time. Thanks for coming. All right, continuance, announcements, and requests.
We have two new requests for continuance. 14-00209 has requested a continuance to January, and then 14-00225 requested a continuance to February. So we'll need to make a motion to continue each of those.
All right, could I have a motion to move HPCA 14-00209 to January?
January 7th and February 4th.
Thank you.
I make a motion to continue HPCA 14-00209 to the January 7th meeting. Second.
I have a motion from Heather Clemmer and a second from Ann Zacharitz to push to the January 7th meeting. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
I make a motion to move HPCA-14-00225 to the February 4th meeting.
Second.
Motion from Heather Clemmer, second from Ann Zacharitz to move 225 to the February 4th meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Great.
We have no dilapidated structures or National Register nominations this month, and nothing on the consent docket.
So we dive straight into cases for individual consideration. We've had a request to move item number 2 to the top of the docket, to hear that in front of number 1. Could I entertain a motion to move that item?
It's because they're related and they're adjacent to each other, and it makes more sense to hear one before the other one. So if the commission has no objection.
I make a motion to move HPCA-14-00190 to the first case on the docket for individual consideration.
Second.
I have a motion from Heather Clemmer and Zacharitz to move item number 2 to the top of individual consideration. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? All right. So we'll hear item number 2.
HPCA 14-00190 at 2109 Northwest 27th Street, Shepherd, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Bradley Ward for certificate of appropriateness to replace fence required.
Great. Staff had recommended a continuance on this item because of its location and height.
Okay.
And you are?
It's my turn. Am I up?
Yes, your name is?
My name is Wade Ward.
Great.
The address is 2109 Northwest 27th.
Thanks for coming today.
Yep. Okay, so there was, in the staff report, there was 2 things that were written up, one being the height and one being the location of the fence. And the reason why I wanted to start first was because one of the things that was written up in the staff report was guideline 2.8.9, which states that the historic preservation guideline, fences and walls shall be located behind the front 40% of the side yard of the main building unless the fence is 75% transparent. Well, the fence is clearly not 75% transparent, but this particular fence for this address, it does come out to just right about 40%. So it meets the guideline. Now, my neighbor's does not. His would fall. It would be closer up than that guideline, but we're trying to make the case that it would make more sense if they were straight across than to have like jagged fences. Does that make sense? Because since one of them meets the guideline, about the 40%, and one of them does not. So that's why I'm going to kind of set it up first.
And we had initially said that it did not meet that 40% requirement because we were looking at the side of the house that is the side to which the fence is attached. Usually when a house has a little projection on the front, we don't include that in calculating the overall length and calculating the 40%, like if it has a little partial porch that sticks out. But we've talked with this applicant, Simon, as we've looked at this projection is nearly half the width of the house. So you may feel that should be included in the length of the house.
Okay, yeah, in my calculations, I was including the projection, so.
And so from the does the nose of your house line up with the other houses up and down the street?
I don't, honestly, I don't know.
I mean, it looks like it's fairly close to the house to the right there.
I think so. I don't think it sticks out too much further if it does. I would have to almost look down a parallel. I don't, because my nose, the reason why Rob's doesn't meet that guideline, his house goes so much further back than mine does, than this one. He's got an extended garage on the back, where mine just is, the side of my house doesn't go back near as far, so.
I think it'd look rather awkward if one was more set back to really fit the guidelines, myself.
Yeah. So you can kind of see there that my front doesn't really come out too much farther than or the house, either one of them. I think it's kind of pretty even with them.
Right.
But that's one of the issues. The second one is the height, and we do realize that the height is above the 6-foot minimum. But and And I think we're okay cutting it down, but the question we do have is because there is a change in elevation. One of the fences is about like 6'6", and then one of them is about like 6'3" on my side, being the shorter one. So if we cut mine down to 6 foot, can we, because we still would like the straight across piece, we wouldn't want it to be kind of jagged again. So can we take the lowest point down to 6 foot, and then, maybe because of the change in elevation, have other side of maybe 6'2" or slightly above the 6 foot range? That's the second. Because you can see the house on the left, it drops almost 3 feet there. So that's our other request, because we would like to keep the tops the same, so they can it looks a little bit better instead of having jagged, if that makes sense.
Thoughts or comments from anyone?
I mean, my comment is we continue to tell people, particularly after the fact, we're back to the 6 feet.
So the preference would be that they would be even because of the change of elevation, that they would be different heights. I mean, because to get 6 feet, it just would look kind of. I mean, if we can do it that way, we just didn't think it looked as good.
I think that we have continued to try to achieve 6 feet as the maximum.
Okay.
The maximum. So if you wanted to combine
Yeah.
together, you would want to be
one would have to
6
be
foot.
Yeah, one would have to be
Or
5'9".
the other one could drop, which then
Yeah.
also, I mean, that would show the the elevation. So it would just be
Okay.
kind of up to what you all want, what each person wanted to do.
Okay.
What do we think about the location? The forward or back?
I think that it could qualify as a unique. It is a little different, and it doesn't seem like that it would want to.
Okay. Great.
And it was there before, but do we have any? Was there any feeling from materials or from that location that the original fence was there?
Well, actually,
Chain link fence behind it, or?
No. Why I kind of think it was there is because in Shepherd, there's only 3 instances where you have like 95% of the houses have the detached garages, which automatically, since my house across the street has the fence set way back because of it. So there's one other incident on our street that has where the driveways go up like this, and they have the attached garages side by side, and the fence is in the same location. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's up the road, but it's actually in the. I put a picture of it, and it's in the staff report towards the back. So there's another example on our street that has the fence in the same spot. The fence is actually fallen down now. It's dilapidated, but you can tell where they don't care about it. But it was there. That's where it was meant to be. So.
Is the taller one on the left, how tall is that right now?
Say which one?
The one on the taller one that's on the lower?
Yeah, it's on the left, yeah.
How tall is it right now?
I think, how tall is yours? 6'6"? Yeah, I think one of them's 6'6", and one of them's like 6'4". So what we would want to do is take the one down to 6 foot and then maybe be like 6'2". So, but if the case has to be where the maximum, then we'll just have to, I mean, that's less of a concern to us than pushing it back.
We're not just talking about the gate, though, are we?
It's both. right?
There's a fence that goes, is there an 8-foot fence?
No. It's 6 feet. It's 6 feet all the way around the property.
Okay.
That's the highest piece. We just built it up a little bit higher just because we thought it, kind of looked.
Okay.
Good. Yeah. But it's 6 feet around the property.
Around the property, okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the one on the right with a lighter colored home was of 6 feet, then we'd have a little taller on the left.
Yeah, that's
kind of a unique circumstance because its property drops.
that's our way.
They would basically look the same.
That's what we would like to see happen. Yeah.
So Katie, the staff report on page 2, under D, Issues and Considerations, item 1, where it says the applicant proposes replacement of an existing wood 6-foot tall fence with an 8-foot tall wood fence is incorrect.
It's not. Yeah, that's incorrect.
I think, is that on?
Or is that the other one?
I think that's for the other one.
Okay.
That's 189.
So on this one, we're dealing with 6-foot fence.
In the staff report, we have that this
Okay.
fence is 6.5, or 6 feet 5 inches tall.
That sounds about right, yeah.
But so
That one would come to 6
the
feet.
8-foot fence on the second one, these are adjoining houses, one says 6 and one says 8. Are we,
Yeah, we have for the house on the left of your screen that the max height of that portion of the fence is 8 feet.
I don't think that's right.
In the staff report.
Is yours go up to 8 feet? Let me just. Yeah, it can't, there's no way that one's 8 feet if mine is 6'5". It doesn't drop that much. That's not
And that
right.
may just be a
Yeah.
typo on our,
You can look and tell that if one's 6'5", his is not 8
yeah,
feet.
it doesn't look like it's a foot and a half.
Yeah, his is probably, I think it's around 6'7". I thought we had that in here.
I just can't find any pictures of the fence, the rest of the fence. All the pictures seem to be related to the gate.
Yep, and I think the remainder of the fences going around the backyards are 6 feet.
Are 6 feet.
And those were not
That's
a
not a
problem.
problem.
It was just the front portion
Okay.
that was too tall. I will say, when we've had some like this, for the most part, it's been on a single property where there was a change in grade, sloping from the front to the back or something, and we've told people that the maximum height could be 6, and that when the grade dropped down, so when the grade drops down, that portion is 6 feet, and as it comes up, your fence is going to be not quite 6 feet, as opposed to letting the fence get taller. But, within a couple of inches, you're probably not going to be able to tell the difference one way or another, but I think if the height's going to be altered anyway, it might make sense to stay within our limit.
Right, since I had both of them sitting here simultaneously, I was confused by the different descriptions in item 1 on each, so.
Yeah, you're right, that doesn't make sense, because one says 8 and that's
Okay.
not very,
Okay.
that's not clear.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments?
Can we move to approve with the condition that the fence is 6 feet?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I move to approve HPCA 14-00190 with the following findings, since they're a little different than staff. Number 1, that the design and material of the proposed fence is consistent with the guidelines and compatible with the primary structure. And I'm going to say 2, that there appears to be a unique circumstance due to the design of the garage of this particular home and the location of the fence and its similarity to other fences next to this similar design. And 3, that the proposed fence location and height are consistent with the guidelines with the condition that the fence
Come down.
be no higher than 6 feet.
And that's the maximum. That's the max.
Yes.
Okay, so the max, so that would be, so we would have to make yours 6 feet, and then mine would have to come down below 6 feet.
If
Yeah,
you wanted.
Okay, that's fine. It would look, yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, sounds good.
We have to vote on these separately, right?
And so that,
Yes.
yeah, we'll take each one. And so that's with the unique circumstance that you stated, and then with a condition that the height not exceed 6 feet.
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Right, I have a motion with unique circumstance and condition from Mary Jo Meacham and a second from George Massey to approve. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. That item is approved.
Thank you.
HPCA 14-00189 at 2113 Northwest 27th Street, Shepherd, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Robert Lane Revocable Trust for certificate of appropriateness to 1 replace fence required.
Hello, I'm Rob Lane, 2113 Northwest 27th Street.
Welcome, thank you. Any other questions or comments for this applicant?
I would move to approve HPCA-14-00198 with the following findings: that the design and material of the proposed fence are consistent with the guidelines and compatible with the primary structure. 2, that it appears to be a unique circumstance due to the design of the house, which is an attached garage and sited next to another house with a similar attached garage. And 3, that the proposed fence location and height are consistent with the guidelines with the condition that the fence be no higher than 6 feet.
Second.
A motion with...
Is that, sorry, was that with the condition that it be 6 feet?
Yes.
Or is that just a, okay.
Yes, with the condition that it be no higher than 6 feet.
I have a motion with condition and unique circumstance from Mary Jo Meacham, and a second from George Massey. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. Thank you. That item is approved.
So, and how long do we, like 30 days or something till we do it, or how long, what's the timeline? Or?
Do what? Yeah, your certificate of appropriateness is good
Oh,
for
I can
a
wait
year.
till it heats up, so I don't have to do it in the
Yeah.
snow?
Yeah.
All right, good. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
HPCA 14-00197 at 705 Northwest 41st Street, Crown Heights, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Greg and Julie Johnson for certificate of appropriateness to, 1, install 7 to 8 foot tall wood fence with cap and trim at west property line at southwest corner of house required, and 4, install 7 foot tall wood fence around AC units required.
Right. We have seen this before. Staff had recommended approval with unique circumstances and conditions.
Hi, Julie Johnson. We did lower the fence around the AC units to 6 feet, and when we lowered the fence on the west side, right behind the trash cans there is a slight elevation change, so it immediately goes from 6 feet to about 6'2" at the very end. So the other thing that, of course, we're discussing is how the neighbor's fence comes far beyond our 40% line. So we just want to get approval to have it abutting that fence.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Or questions for staff about the recommendation?
Can you just speak to it briefly, Katie?
You know what? I might actually ask Angela to speak to it because she's worked on this one more closely than I have.
Thank you, Angela.
The neighboring fence at this property fences their backyard. It's a permanent structure. It's a brick fence, and it does move forward of this applicant's front porch. They also have a fence along their backyard, a wood fence that directly abuts this property line and comes all the way up to this brick fence. If the applicant were to take her fence down, then their fence would then be exposed to them, and it's not in great shape. The guidelines specifically say that fences shouldn't move forward of front porches, but in this case, this permanent brick fence is never going to go away. And so it is a somewhat unique circumstance that you might want to address in order to have both yards surrounded by fencing. It would likely be more appropriate if the neighbor were to fence their backyard to keep us in line with the guidelines, but that's not something that I can enforce, and so it's entirely up to you.
Was this, can I ask the applicant, was this the location of a fence before you all put the fence up?
Yes, it was.
And so, since the last meeting, you've reduced the height of the fence around the AC units?
And this fence as well, because this fence was also above the 6-foot mark.
Okay. But it's still not, it's still higher than 6 feet?
Only for about 6 inches because of the elevation grade.
Any other comments here on the 6 feet? To me, I feel like that when we continue to talk about the grade, then it just, there is no guideline, because there's no guideline for the percentage of the fence that can go over the 6 feet due to the elevation of the grade. So, I mean, if we had a fence that started at 6 feet in the front and then the hill goes down, it's very hard to make an exception. I mean, I don't, any comments on how we should make an exception? I know, 2 inches, 2 feet, or...
Right, yeah.
Does it make a difference that the neighbor's fence is still a couple of inches taller than ours is in this case? So we can see the small portion of the fence that he actually has, because his fence is not inclusive of his yard. Our fence is. And you can even see in one of the photos that he's got a couple of inches above ours, which is why ours was so tall in the first place. But, you know.
I don't think...
I know he's not seeking approval, but...
I don't think any of us want to seem unreasonable, but I think that it's so much easier for us to just stick to the guidelines and say 6 feet, so that it's fair to everybody, because every time then we're trying to decide...
So I get to pay another $800 to have my fence lowered 2 inches?
I guess I don't understand if
Because
you lowered it, why
only a
didn't we just
certain
go ahead and
portion
do the
that's
6 feet?
Well, and I spoke to my fence contractor after the fact and said it is 2 inches taller at the end. And of course, his response is, well, you don't want to stair-step it all the way down because that looks even worse. So in order for us to still maintain some privacy and camouflage our neighbors' stuff, it is only a fraction of the fence that is 6'2". If you want us to drop the whole thing to 6 feet, then we would gladly comply.
Do we have a picture? Is this the only picture that we have of the neighbor's fence? I'm finding it difficult to kind of...
And it is hard to see on there. I can point it out to you individually if you'd like.
But it is this picture?
Yes, it is that picture, and you can see where their fence ends just beyond the right trash can. Do you see a difference there where you can see the line of their fence above ours? And from that point, they kind of have a hodgepodge of wood and chain link and no fence.
Wouldn't the 2 inches that we're talking about, isn't that more of really the cap?
It
of
is the
this?
cap, yes.
So it's a decorative
Right.
item?
Right.
We've talked about making exceptions or finding unique circumstances based on the topography of a particular property, but every parcel's unique. And I think for consistency, we need to adhere to the guidelines. Otherwise, we're going to be redesigning fences for each applicant.
So based on that discussion, is there consideration for a motion?
I do have a question, since there are 2 case items and we're kind of focusing on the one. The fence around the AC unit is now 6 feet, is that correct?
Yes.
Instead of the 7 feet?
Yes.
And so we're really not debating that point, correct? Then I'll make a motion to approve HPCA-14-00197, item number 4, with the clarification that it is a 6 foot tall. I don't know if that's a clarification or a condition, since it says 7 foot in the items for consideration, and it's also on the docket as saying it's a 7 foot, so maybe that has to be a condition.
Yeah, I think you can use that, have that be a condition, since as far as what was submitted to you, said it was 7 feet, and now you've been told it's 6, so to include that change.
Okay. With the findings in the staff recommendation, but with the condition that the fence around the AC unit is no more than 6 feet in height.
Second.
A motion from Heather Clemmer, a second from Ann Zacharitz for approval with condition for item number 4. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, please say nay. Thank you. So that leaves us with item number 1. And our 6-foot 2-inch fence.
I move to approve 14-00197, item 1, with, with the findings in the staff recommendation in section CD of the staff report, specific findings being that the height of the proposed fence enclosure should be reduced for an overall height of 6 feet tall, including the curb, and that the proposed fencing along the west as constructed is not consistent with the criteria for approval in height or location, with the condition that the height of the built fence shall not exceed 6 feet at its highest point when placed at grade, and gravel shall not be included in this dimension. Is that correct?
And
Sorry.
you want to capture that unique circumstance?
The unique okay. That including the unique circumstance that the proposed fence location is unique in that an abutting permanent brick fence makes the proposed fence location the most logical for this particular property.
So would you also include in there the height of the fence you're actually approving? I mean, you said the unique circumstance, but would you say that it's the 6-foot 2-inch? It's captured? Okay, good. Thank you.
Was it in there? Okay.
Okay. I have a motion from Mary Jo Meacham. Do I have a second?
Excuse me, Ms. Meacham, did you say 6 feet tall?
6 feet, yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Just for clarification,
I'm saying that the height of the proposed fence should be reduced for an overall height of 6 feet tall, including the curb.
Do I have a second to that motion?
Or another motion.
All right. I've never had a motion not have a second, so. Is there another motion that we'll entertain? And if there is no motion,
There's no action with no motion. Were you about to?
No, I was going to ask a question about the neighbors before attempting to formulate anything in my head. How, you said that the neighbor's fence, again, I'm sorry, the pictures we have really aren't showing us the difference, that it's kind of a hodgepodge of fences, that there's not consistency. So at that point where it is 6'2", which is at the front of this fence, how tall is their fence?
It's probably 6'3" to 6'4".
Okay, and how far back?
That goes about maybe 7 or 8 feet back.
and is the part of your fence that is out of compliance, is it the forwardmost
It is, where it meets up with that brick column.
brick column?
Mhm.
Is the brick column part of yours or part of theirs?
Theirs.
Okay. Then I'm going to second Mary Jo on her motion that it be 6 feet.
Okay. I have a motion from Mary Jo Meacham, a second from Heather Clemmer, to approve with unique circumstance and condition. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay? Thank you. The item is approved at 6 feet.
Thank you.
HPCA 14-00199, this applicant has asked that this item, as well as 14-212 and 14-213, all be moved to the end of the meeting agenda. It's one applicant for all three, and they've asked to be last. So normally, again, we normally don't shift people around, but since he's letting people go ahead of him, I don't think anyone's going to object.
Can you repeat those numbers?
So it would be 14-199, 14-212, and 14-213.
And can a single motion take care of all of that? Okay.
Then I make a motion to move to the end of the cases for individual consideration, HPCA 14-14-00199, HPCA-14-00212, and HPCA-14-00213.
Excuse me, I'm here on 0199. My name is Joseph Angus.
Adam Landman
Yes?
contacted our office and asked that we hear all three of his items, which includes yours, at the end of the meeting agenda.
And can you estimate when that might be, or usually is it 5:36 or?
It's usually not 5:36. I would hope it would be closer to 4.
Okay, that's fine, thanks.
Sure.
I had a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
The motion from Heather Clemmer, a second from Ann Zackwitz to move those items to the end of Section D, cases for individual consideration. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. All right, thank you.
HPCA 14-00200 at 310 Northwest 19th, Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of J.K. Mergenich by Eric Scheinel for certificate of appropriateness to 1, screen veranda elective, and 2, install screen door elective.
Thank you. And we had staff recommended approval of both items with conditions.
And we have spoken with the applicants between the last meeting and this one, and they really would prefer not to remove the lattice and to just install the screens. The guidelines allow for screening in of porches, and the lattice is really not being touched. So the commission may feel that while maybe the lattice is not the most appropriate thing, adding the screens is not really doing any further harm. But I'll let the applicant make any comments.
Hello, I'm John Merjanic at 310 Northwest 19th.
Thank you for coming today. Does anyone have questions or comments for the
I have a
applicant?
question of the applicant. My question would be, it appeared from the description of the work that there was going to be wood applied to the outside of the lattice panel and then applied touching the column. Is that the way?
Yep. The screen will be in the interior of the lattice work, and it would look like...
Okay, so the screen
It
would
will
be...
just be a
You would
panel.
use the existing lattice and put screen on the interior.
Clip the screen in. Yes.
But then you would be really, in a more permanent way, attaching the lattice panel then to the column. Is that the way?
There'll be a board in between the lattice work and the column.
So it would be infilled with wood and then painted?
That's correct. And the contractor says that she can cut the wood where it will conform to the capital of the columns.
I would just think that it would seem that we are actually adding to a non-historic portion of the where it is, the porch. versus just installing a screen that could be removed? Not that it all couldn't, I mean, lots of things can be removed, but I mean, I think when we talk about screening that can be removed, it's more the screen and the,
Yeah, for
that's
the-
just my observation.
For
That's
the
all I have.
functionality of
Right.
the porch being screened, it all is going to have to be screened or enclosed.
Right.
Otherwise, the mosquitoes will swarm us.
My point being, it seems like that we're incorporating non-historic material into a project.
Does that infill, is it in the same plane as the frame around the lattice work, or does it sit inside the house from there? Where does that infill wood?
What's that again?
So you see the photo that we're looking at right now on the screen, the infill wood in between the lattice work frame and the column, is it in the same plane as the lattice work frame, or does it push back
Well,
inside the house?
the lattice work is in between the framed perimeter.
Yes. And so you're going to infill wood in between that lattice work frame and the column so the mosquitoes don't get in.
That's correct.
And so does that infill, does it happen, is it back inside the house, or does it happen right where the lattice work sits?
It will happen right where the lattice work sits.
Okay. So that lattice work frame,
It'll
in
be-
essence, looks like it gets really fat.
It'll be
with each of the
continual.
column. Okay.
And that's kind of where I was going. When you see that it says in the guidelines, enclosing a historic side porch with screen panels was frequently done, and then it continues to say, may be allowed if designed in a manner that is compatible with the style of the building. That was where my comments came from.
Is that frame being attached to the columns?
It will be attached to the column. It will be, I guess, caulked onto the column. It won't be, it will not damage the column. There'll be no nails or anything like that.
Have you looked at the staff recommendations on this? Because the condition one that they have on their recommendation is that the non-historic lattice be removed
Yeah,
as part of the
I
installation.
have no interest in removing the lattice work, just for security and privacy reasons.
But as we discussed before, it's already there.
Right, I'm just looking at the staff recommendations,
Yes.
and they,
True.
if we were to approve it with staff recommendations, the condition, number one, is that we're removing the lattice only.
Right.
Obviously,
So you
that's the
would-
opposite
you
of
would
what,
If you felt that was acceptable, then you would exclude that
right.
condition. Right.
Well, then again, I think, we're looking at, would we approve the whole project if it came in and it wasn't done today? Just to add to that, it just seems, I don't think that the lattice and the screening fits the guidelines. So if we were looking at the whole thing together, to me, it doesn't appear to fit the guidelines.
To me, I would be more comfortable if the screening was not affixed to this infill portion, because I think that would honestly look kind of awkward. We don't have a column, we don't have a lattice work, we've got extra wood that I don't think is of a historical integrity issue, honestly. If there's some way to inset it in some way and then just have screening go across behind the, so you don't see infill. I just don't think the infill would look appropriate
I
myself.
don't know what other way to do it as far as enclosing that space between the column and the lattice paneling. It would be great if you could put some kind of screening in between there, but it would have to be stapled under the column or whatever, or it would have to be grooved into the column, which is going to damage the integrity of the column.
I just meant some from the photo we're looking at, if there was to go slightly behind, instead of infill, go slightly behind with a piece of wood that on both sides of it, where the lattice work is, but behind the column. So you wouldn't have, you'd have your screened-in porch, but you would not have infill there. Because I just think that doesn't look appropriate. Does anyone else?
I think it's going to make the column look, it's going to kind of distort the appearance of the column when it has the wood next to it.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Well, it would be similar to this picture here where the wood comes and meets the column. This is at the neighbor's house. This is the way they did it, where it's going to butt up against, I mean, it's a different capital than what we've got, but you can see where it's coming into the capital.
Well, and where yours
What
is...
page is that on that you're looking at?
It's on page 6.
6.
And the screen paneling will look like the paneling there in the picture. It will just simply clip into the lattice, the interior of the lattice work.
How will they infill where your columns are at the top and they're so decorative?
I'm sorry?
You know, at the top of your columns, where the Corinthian column, where they're curled,
Right.
they won't touch that part? It doesn't touch that?
The contractor has a technique where she can cut and wedge the wood in with the decorative part of the capital.
Katie, do we have comments from the neighborhood on this one?
They had no problem with any of the applicants.
The neighborhood just agreed with the staff recommendation.
Katie, was the reason for that condition about removing the lattice work because of 3.12, which says that if there's repairs or replacements to 2/3 of an inappropriate component, that all the inappropriate component or materials shall be replaced?
Yes.
Okay. Is lattice considered inappropriate or just non-historic?
We see it in many places. We don't have any reason to think that, historically that would have been the condition. That's to some extent a judgment call of the commission on whether you think it's inappropriate. Certainly the historic condition would have likely been a more open, transparent side porch. So.
I just don't think the infill would look appropriate for these columns and this. I know what you're trying to do, and I think it would be some other means of, the contractor would probably figure that out.
Well, we've really beat around the bush trying to come up with the best solution unless you have some great idea that's going to be able to fill in and totally enclose the porch, but we couldn't come up with any other ideas. It's going to have to either be infilled or screened, or put a piece of glass in there. I mean, those are the materials that you can work with.
It's just my opinion that the infill would not ever look appropriate on the side of this house.
And I think it would be a real challenge to actually get them to fit,
especially
because
at the top.
of that decorative column.
And I agree, but I mean, that's her expertise also.
Yeah.
And I have to put my trust and faith in what she tells me, and I can only pass that on to you all.
All right, any other questions?
I move to approve HPCA 14-00200 with the findings in the staff recommendation in section CD of the staff report, which would be the specific findings listed and the conditions, and I'll repeat that the non-historic lattice be removed as part of the installation of the screens, and that the existing historic woodwork, including columns, remain intact and not be altered to fit additional framing for screens and doors.
But if he has said that he has no intention of getting rid of the lattice work, then how do we approve something with a condition he has no intention of doing?
He does have a continuance left, so if you're not comfortable approving as he's proposed, we could, I don't know if you're interested at all in one more continuance, but we could certainly continue it one more time and see if there's any other solutions we can find. I do think that the thought of setting the screens in a little deeper so that they meet on the interior side of the column rather than meeting on the sides of the columns might work. We would just have to look at how deep in that would set them and if he would be losing too much space on the side porch.
Well, it would be, you could curve something around the columns. But that's going to be you're going to see that from the interior. I mean, that's going to be more obtrusive from being inside of the veranda, having it curving around. I mean, you're not even going to see the columns then from sitting on the veranda if you're going to curve around it.
And I haven't looked closely enough at what the interior of the porch is, so I don't know. I'm just thinking, it sounds like people aren't comfortable approving what's proposed right now, so we could continue it one more time to see if there are some other options.
See, Angela has a picture of the interior on page 5.
So I would agree that adding the infill wood is going to substantially change, George and Joe, as you indicated, really change the character of that exterior expression, and I would not be comfortable approving that as well. I would prefer to see a continuance to work on another solution that does work, that doesn't make such an odd look for the columns from the street. But that's my thought.
What kind of a suggestion from the committee as far as what type of inlay you would use to have it work?
Again, our intent is not to design from the horseshoe. I think that something that is not visible from the street, something that sits inside the porch would be something that we would be interested in looking at, how that works. That would be a direction I would recommend seeking out, but that's my thought.
I do think that, infilling next to the column is part of this problem. Because it would just make the column from the street all painted white and everything. It would look substantially different.
I agree. The lattice work, it's there. I really don't have that big of an issue with adding the screen behind it that, you're changing, you're not changing. It's not that big of a deal to me. To me, the bigger deal is how to infill those gaps around the columns. The columns have such a unique shape that when you add that infill panel, it's going to really detract from their uniqueness and shape. And I think that to me, really makes what's been proposed not acceptable. And I'd like to see a different solution.
Could we go ahead and put the screen inlay in, lattice work, and go ahead and enclose the south side of the porch, and for now, do nothing with the inlay between the lattice work and the column? It won't be 100% mosquito-proof, but, can we make that compromise?
I have no issue with that.
I don't either.
Could you repeat that, please? I'm sorry.
Okay. To go ahead and not do any inlay between the lattice work and the columns, but go ahead and put the screen inlay in the interior of the lattice work that simply clip in, and also screen in the south side of the veranda.
The part that faces toward your backyard.
Which is on the picture there on the
What we're looking
screen.
at now.
And that faces the back of the house.
That faces south, which is the back of the house, that's correct. And then down the road, we can re-entertain the issue as far as, maybe it'll really help as far as the mosquitoes. And then if it does, we'll stop there.
Maybe they won't see the opening.
That's right.
Can I amend my motion or make another one? Which way? Rita?
Because you would move to approve the staff, basically as indicated in the staff report.
And there wasn't
There was not a second.
Okay. Okay.
And then we get a new.
I will withdraw the motion that I previously made and move to approve HPCA 14-00200, items 1 and 2. Let's see. With a specific finding 1, that it's appropriate and reversible, let's see, striking number 2, specific finding 3, that the proposed screen door meets all the guidelines and will not be visible from the right-of-way and will be installed as to be reversible and not affect the surrounding historic fabric, with the condition that, let's see, the area between the lattice and the columns remain open,
Untouched.
untouched.
Second. Excellent. I have a motion with condition from Joe Meacham and a second from George Massey. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
So in layman's terms, what does that mean? That we can do as we propose without doing the inlay?
Yes, exactly. The screen
Okay.
goes on the backside of the lattice work, and then nothing gets filled in between the column and the...
And enclose the south end also?
And enclose the south end with the screen door.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
HPCA 14-00203 at 2221 Northwest 29th Street, Shepherd, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Lauren Holloway Carter for certificate of appropriateness to number 3, install shutters elective. The Commission heard this previously and approved several other items on the application. I believe the applicant was not present, so we continued it to give them one more opportunity to document historic shutters, but we haven't received any additional documentation to that effect.
And there's no one here to speak on this case. Staff has recommended denial. I would be happy to entertain a motion.
So there are no more continuances, is that?
They do actually have one more continuance, but when we've spoken with the applicant previously, they said they haven't been able to find anything, they haven't seen anything on the house, so I don't think it's likely that they're going to come up with something.
Okay. Where is the staff? I move to deny HPCA 14-00203, item 3 with prejudice, with the findings in the staff recommendation in section C of the staff report.
Section D.
Is that,
D.
I mean,
D.
I'm sorry?
I think section D.
Section D. I'm confused because it says section D.
Second.
A motion for denial from Joe Meacham, a second from Ann Zacharitz. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you. That item is denied.
HPCA 14-00209 was continued at the beginning of the meeting. HPCA 14-00212 and 213 were moved to the end of the agenda. HPCA 14-00214 at 403 Northwest 19th Street, Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Laverna Williams by Catherine Montgomery, AIA, of Preservation and Design Studio for certificate of appropriateness to, 1, construct walkway to street elective, 2, replace back with new deck and screen porch elective, 3, replace side deck with new deck and screen porch elective, and 4, reconfigure front porch and walk elective. And Rita brought to my attention that the staff report says reconfigure front porch and canopy, whereas your agenda says front porch and walk, but I think front porch is all-inclusive of the work, so it's a typo, but it's not. Just make sure the motion says the right thing.
Okay. Thank you. So there are several items and several different approvals and continuances recommended by staff.
Hi, I'm Laverna Williams, owner at 403 Northwest 19th Street. My reading of the staff report is that there are a couple of things that they recommend approval of, and we can put those aside. Is that true?
Well, at some point, they'll have to take action on those, but we could either discuss the other items that have more issues with them, and then take action on everything else. But yeah, unless commission members have particular concerns about those things, I don't know that you need to address them.
Okay, and I didn't understand what you just said about the porch and the cover of the porch, front porch.
So on the agenda and probably on the public notice, it says reconfigure front porch and walk. And on the staff report, for some reason, we just changed our wording and didn't get it fixed in both places. It says front porch and canopy, but I think reconfigure front porch applies to the whole entryway to the house. So it's covered. It's just different terminology in one place and the other.
Okay. What questions can I answer?
Well, given the staff report, what are you wanting to go forward with?
Well, I want to go forward with, of course, the walkway from the street and the back deck as described in the proposal. The front porch actual stoop, as well as the cover of the stoop, and some change, some improvement to the side deck. I need to do something to the side deck because it's deteriorating. So, does that answer your question?
I think so.
Okay.
It seems like today, every time it's always different. Today, it seems like that we're looking at non-historic
themes. Huh?
The theme today is what to do with non-historic portions. I think it's, there needs to be some thought into how we, what we're going to approve when we're actually improving something that's non-historic. Because it goes back to, I don't know, we have some percentages and so forth. Katie's described those as when you start repairing something. To me, just like the gentleman in the beginning, the fence would not have been a problem if they just replaced the boards and had that fence exactly like it was. They would have been okay. Then we're at repair. But when you take it down and then you start over or something, it appears that that's where we have issues. So the side deck, I can see why it's kind of an interesting design issue because it's not historic. But I can see something has to be there. The door is way up above the ground, correct?
Yes.
Do you have any idea what was there before? Was there just a set of wood steps or something?
Actually, Catherine Montgomery, Preservation and Design Studio. I'd like to call your attention to pages 30, starting on page 31 of the staff report. This is some additional information that we put together to help kind of focus on what we think are the important issues in consideration of this very unique property. just to kind of run you through it real quick, and then we can come back and look at some of the finer points. On page 32, we've reproduced photographs of the Sanborn map folios that are available in the planning department. And you can see that this property, both in 1919, which is the top Sanborn map, and in the latest one, 1955, there's very little change to the original house, and the house is the most modest house on that entire block from the very beginning of time. Then the next snapshot or evidence that we have from the written record is the 1990 published Heritage Hills book, which included the photograph on page 33. And you can see that, in the text from the book, that these changes, that there were a lot of changes made to the property through the ownership of Mr. and Mrs. Tinney, who occupied it according to the county assessor's records from 1972 to 1983. So we attribute the deck to him. Then let's turn to page 36, and then the photographs which follow on pages 37, 38, and 39, which show you on page 36, the plan shows you a dashed line of a concrete porch that's underneath the deck. So we examined, we removed boards to examine that very carefully, especially because, we also needed to examine the condition of the structure underneath the deck, which is remarkably in perfect condition. But the slab, we think, if you look at the photograph on the bottom of page 37, the slab actually has a very smooth surface, and it has a very thin, fine aggregate topping. So as you go around the neighborhoods, you see where elevated porches were like there's a wall in front of them, and then the slab is instead of that wall. So we suspect that that was the case with the original side porch. And it's quite possible that that wall was made out of brick, and could explain why there's so much brick paving in the backyard and on the sidewalks and stuff like that, because maybe that wall was failing, something was wrong with it, we don't really know, and the brick was salvaged and reused on the site. The slab itself remains in place, and then the deck was built over the top of it. So page 36, that plan kind of shows you that the extent of the side porch is very similar to the extent of the existing deck, with the exception of that little piece that projects forward of the front building line. And that these photographs also show you some of the deteriorating conditions with the skirting. So if you go back to page 31, in the introductory paragraph, I just wanted to bring everybody's attention to what I think is really important in setting the stage for the standards and guidelines. And that is that the city's historic preservation ordinance acknowledges that historic districts and landmarks are valuable assets to the city. The ordinance recognizes that change is important to the community's evolution and an indication of healthy, vital neighborhoods, occupied by residents proud of their neighborhood and its history. Development and investment that preserve the historic character of Oklahoma City's historic properties and districts, while also enhancing livability, are encouraged. So based on that, we move to the front porch. We're calling it a stoop because it's really not big enough to be a porch, and the cover over that stoop, which we think is an appropriate response under unique circumstances for three basic reasons that we give on page 5. And that is that it's a very simple design. It doesn't try to call attention to itself, that the existing cover is starting to sag, and that something needs to be done to maintain that protection over the front porch. So we've suggested that In order for somebody who's standing on the front porch to not get wet while they're waiting for the door to be opened or waiting to open the door, is that it should be expanded to at least match, about 5 feet. So we're really only increasing it about 2 feet. And it's a very modest design. So it's from a safety perspective, and it's compatible. Then the side deck, of course, we have lots of reasons that we think that that's appropriate. And you can find most of them at the bottom of page 34 and the top of page 35. I've come up with basically 16 things that I think are important to consider. That the appropriateness of the deck lies in the proof of the former porch, demonstrated by the remaining materials at the site. Number 2, that historic east side doors are elevated off the ground and require some kind of access from the driveway. That consistent with the elevated porch, the solid side skirting is the elevated side porch would have had some kind of solid thing around it, so the skirting is appropriate. And the wood represents a monolithic solid face, which is reminiscent of that former historic patio stem wall. The house has wood siding, and we think that a wood or a wood substitute deck for the side is compatible. That the property is relatively shaded by mature trees, and that a cover over that porch is appropriate in order to extend that life and prevent biological growth. Also, for some reason, my client has pointed out to me that the birds in the neighborhood love her property. I don't know why. Sometimes the pigeons collect on one particular property, and it just happens to be hers. It could be because it's at grade level. It's like flat with the street, so it doesn't go up. It's kind of secluded by all the trees, and along with those birds come the things we don't like about them, which is what they leave behind. So she would like to have her porch covered so she doesn't have to deal with that. Number 7 is that these features, a side porch, even with a cover, sometimes enclosed, are very common features in Heritage Hills. And it's interesting that this house had never developed one if it didn't have one originally. Number 9, that the features are designed in a very modest nature, and they would basically have no adverse effect, really no adverse effect on the district. And in my mind, no adverse effect on the house because they're completely reversible. Also, making them out of wood could be like a temporary solution if you wanted to look at it that way. If at some point in the future someone wanted to come back and restore that slab and that wall, it's just outside of the scope of what my client has the capacity to entertain at this time. The interior lot, it's an interior lot, so it's not visible from, the side is not really visible. It's minimally visible from the side, and it would have a minimal impact from the public right-of-way. So I think there's lots of reasons right there that you could find some unique circumstances to grant approval of the side deck and cover and the front canopy.
Thank you.
What?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any additional questions or comments or considerations?
Catherine, what page was the historic photograph on, or the old? Can't find it.
The one from the Heritage Hills book?
Yes.
Page 33.
Is it your opinion that the roof over the canopy over the front door is the same canopy as in that picture?
That's currently there? Yes, absolutely. And you'll notice that it has those little brackets that we have, taken great pains to draw very carefully for you. And so what we want to do is, by putting that post just a few feet away from the wall, and then putting that same bracket on the post. So really, it'll look basically the same as it does in the photograph on page 7 of the staff report. Oh, sorry, on 7 of the meeting attachments. See the wide band of the screen door, and then you have the brackets on either side of that. So that would just come forward by a couple of feet. And everything else about the cover is exactly the same as it is today.
Well, on the porch, I think that we're back to removing historic material and replacing it with a porch that we don't have proof of. I mean, we don't have. I mean, we're not replacing the. It's not like the porch is gone and now we're trying to design a new porch. I mean, we know what the historic porch looks like. I'm not really sure what your circumstances are that we would be able to remove the existing historic porch canopy and build a whole new porch. Is it just to keep the rain away? Is this the...
Yeah, I mean, right now, you know, it's 2 feet 9 inches that projects from there. The screen door itself is 4 feet,
Right.
because the front door is 4 feet.
Because
So
we
when
have-
that door swings open and you're standing there,
Right.
you're getting wet and you're going to be shoved off the...
Because we have numerous houses in the
Yeah.
districts that don't have any porch, that have a full front solid facade, and we would not allow them to add something, I don't think, like that's kind of how I see it
I understand.
on that one.
But we're here today asking for this,
Right.
as opposed
Okay,
to
I'm just-
someone who doesn't come asking for it. And I think that it's completely appropriate for this very modest structure to have something over the stoop. And I think that it's not inconsistent with the district, and I mean, we don't even know what was there before, if there was anything, because we just don't have the documentation.
Just could you go ahead and clarify the walkway to the street? Is it just a concrete, and then the porch itself? I mean, what's the proposal to change the boat beneath the canopy? Bigger? So,
Yeah, the same 5-foot
Same
set,
5
so
foot.
that you have a little bit of space to stand when the door comes swinging at you.
Any other thoughts or comments on the porch and porch cover?
I mean, if you'd like to consider these in order, that would certainly be fine.
Okay. So item number 1, construct walkway to street. Are there any questions about that?
I mean, I would move to approve HBCA 14-00214, item 1, install the walkway to the street, and item 2, replace the back deck with the findings in the staff recommendation and section D of the staff report, which would be the proposed sidewalk is compatible under item 1 and item 2, that the number 1, I agree with the staff. Number 2, just to say it, the proposed changes to the rear are not visible from the public right-of-way and appear to be compatible, and that the proposed materials are appropriate for a back deck not visible from the right-of-way.
Great.
Second.
I have a motion from Joe Meacham and a second from Ann Zacharitz to approve items 1 and 2. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Thank you. Items 1 and 2 are approved. So we want to tackle item number 3, the side deck and screened porch on the side of the house? In my mind, those seem like some very visible changes to the historic fabric that's there. I struggle with being able to approve those personally.
What was the, could you tell us the height of what you discovered underneath there? Did they originally step down to it and then step down again?
Yes, I think that they originally, as in most of the houses, the concrete would be about 6 inches, one step down from the finished floor line, which has given this deck with the structure on top of that slab an even flush entrance. And where the steps are on the side is right on top of where the steps had been, are there underneath. Except that these steps are a little bit wider. The existing steps for the deck, which you can see on the existing site plan, which is page 6 of the attachments. No, I'm sorry. Page 5 of the attachments.
Can I make a motion on item 4? Do we want? I move to deny HPCA 14-00214, item 4, to replace the canopy and porch with the findings in the staff recommendation in section D. That the proposed changes to the front canopy are not supported by current or previously documented conditions of the structure and create a false representation of the character of the structure, and that the proposed changes in the size to the porch landing are minimally visible and will not adversely affect the character of the historic structure. I'm approving, I'm making a motion to deny the canopy and approve the extension of the brick porch. Is that what you meant?
Well, I had intended to say to continue those 2 items with the thought that if the commission didn't feel comfortable approving the canopy as proposed, that they could revise that design as guided by your input, rather than just deny it outright. Because I think it does look like that cover needs repair, if anything.
I'm in support of repair.
To come outside the porch with new posts and extend it that much further out seems like a pretty substantial change to me.
Again, the easiest thing to do for me is just to go back to the guidelines, because if we continue to make exceptions, then we just have no guidelines, and every time somebody comes in, then we're making exceptions again. It's very uncomfortable for me when I feel like we already have a guideline that says we can't do that.
I agree. That's why we have the guidelines.
I think that my client would rather continue that item to give us a chance to respond to, what we think that the guidelines say or don't say, and possibly redesign that, make it a little bit shorter. Something does need to be done because it's beginning to sag, and the only thing that we can think of is that a column is going to support that permanently, whether it's extended or not.
On the side porch, I agree with Jeff about having such a screened-in porch. To me, it would be better to have a new deck similar to what is there with maybe a temporary awning. I would be more comfortable with that myself. I've seen that in the neighborhood. Something like that that would achieve what she's after as far as protection and that type of, be more of a temporary, literally a canvas awning.
As far as replacing the deck itself, I don't have a huge issue with replacing the deck. It's common to see side porches on houses, particularly, a simple house like this. I think when it comes to creating that third dimension in it with, a fairly permanent looking roof, and then, as we've discussed, screen, the screen is not all that visible, but it it is a mast that will be attached to the side of the house. I would be interested in seeing what some proposals might be for some sort of other awning or covering might be. I think, yeah, the porch itself, or the side porch, isn't really that much of an issue for me.
I mean, we have obviously talked a lot about this, and we've talked about, the recommendations from the staff and the standards and guidelines. So there is some wiggle room on the design, and we can talk about those things. Maybe we can actually come to agreement today and just follow up with those revisions in the drawings. For example, that little section that comes forward of the house is really not that useful. So the idea of rebuilding it and taking that little tongue, is what I call it, and moving that back to make it more the original size of the slab underneath is one of the things that we talked about. Of course, that would take away some of the screening there, because the only reason that there's a screen door is to access that little piece, so that on the actual south facade, it would just be screening. I'd like to also turn your attention to pages 29 and 30 of the staff report. We actually went to the store and purchased different kinds of screening that are available and put them up against the existing railing at that deck so that the commission could see our selection process for the screening. You can see on page 29 at the bottom photograph that the black aluminum is basically, you can't even see it, especially, we had 4 different things that we tried out, and then on the back page, we made a couple of other combinations, and we really found that the black aluminum is barely visible, and we thought that was an important effort so that you could actually understand what effect the screening would have.
So literally, you can't see it, the aluminum black at all. That's amazing.
You can't. And we've minimized the framing so that it would be very minimal.
But as I look at page 12 of 39, I mean, it still seems like a very substantial thing to do to the front of the house. And I guess that's where my reservation comes from. I don't know what anybody else thinks.
Say that again, please.
On page 12 of 39, you can see the front-facing portion of the screen porch and the shed roof that would be added and the hardy plank siding that goes in the infill half gable. And then, the screen itself is minimally visible, but it's got the roof over the top of it, and it's got the columns and the downspout and all the other parts and pieces. It looks like a really pretty significant modification to the front-facing elevation of the house.
Is there just one door on the side or 2, Kathy?
On the side of the house, there's 2. If you look on...
Both sides of the fireplace?
Yes.
Okay.
If you look on the next page, page 13, there's 2 windows on either side of the fireplace on the second floor, and the doors are basically right underneath those. So one's very far forward near the front. One of the other options that we've just, go ahead. Oh.
They're waiting for you.
Oh, they're waiting for me. Are you waiting for me?
It seemed like you were going to say something.
I thought somebody else was starting to speak, so that's why I shut up. The gable end, I mean, we can certainly simplify that, especially if we take the tongue off, and that would just be simple screening. We can certainly do that and bring that deck back closer to the original footprint of the slab underneath.
I'm not sure if we're just hypothesizing about what we might approve or not, but I agree with what you said, that I would have trouble approving anything that looked like the diagram.
Yeah, it's a substantial addition to the part of the house that's
highly visible from the public right-of-way.
Agreed.
Because this is similar to some things that were done before HP in the neighborhood on some homes that I have seen. You know, a side room was put on. It looks like it was before HP to me.
Well, that's very interesting because, you know, in Heritage Hills, HP dates back to what, 1969?
69?
So, you know, certainly during the occupancy of the person who constructed that side, or is supposed to have, which was 1972 to 1983, that's pretty close to 1969, although we did also do, you know, a previous HPCA search, and there was never any CA for, I don't know, maybe that's a bad thing I said, but, there, I mean, you know, that was very common, so, you know, it just, for whatever they were looking for at that time, it obviously wasn't what had occurred, so.
Catherine, do you feel that if it was approved, I've never been here when we did an approval of an awning, a canvas awning, would that be something of interest at all?
We had discussed
Instead of
that
a
during the
closed-in?
design process. Of course, you know, a fabric awning is going to need to be replaced maybe every 5 to 7 years, so it becomes a maintenance issue. I suppose it's better than nothing. Some of the other things that we've talked about is just where is the line, you know, maybe part of the side gets screened in and covered, and maybe the other part is just covered and not screened. So there's, you know, various options that we certainly are willing to entertain.
I just don't think I could honestly support anything on the side of the house like that myself.
So then, would you be willing to perhaps have a continuance
Yeah.
of those items? Okay. Continuance to January would mean that documentation is due fairly quickly. If you're comfortable with that, or if you'd rather go to February, that's possible too.
I think we'll take a 60-day.
So that would be to the February 4th docket. I would be happy to entertain a motion.
I move to continue HPCA 1400214, items 3, replace the side deck, and 4, replace the canopy and porch to the
February 4th.
February 4th meeting.
Second. I have a motion for a continuance to the February docket from Joe Meacham and a second, George Massey. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
HPCA 14-00216 at 700 Northwest 18th Street, Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Lee and Bridget Foster for certificate of appropriateness to 1, remove existing paving in backyard, elective, and 2, construct new garage and paving, elective.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Lee Foster. And I'm nervous. Very nervous.
We're not mean. Well, maybe.
I know.
Kidding. Thank you for coming today.
Oh, pleasure to be here.
Well,
You guys have a tough job.
so staff has recommended approval of item 1 and a continuance on item 2, chiefly because, as I take it, the garage is slightly larger than what our guidelines would allow. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
Say that again now. Continuance on
As staff has recommended a continuance on constructing the garage, as my understanding that continuance is, the proposed garage is slightly larger than what our guidelines allow. Am I saying that right, Katie? Somebody? Okay. Thank you. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
Do we have exceptions for size?
So the guideline says, let me find it, that construction of a replacement garage may reasonably expand beyond the footprint of a historic one- or two-car garage up to a total footprint of 450 square feet or 5% of the lot, whichever is greater, in order to accommodate a standard-sized parking space for up to 2 vehicles. Additional factors including the level of visibility of a new garage and the size and massing of surrounding structures may be considered. We did notice with this proposed garage that it is the same width as the historic garage, the foundation's still there, and it's 2 feet deeper than the historic garage. So it is over that 450 mark, but it is just very slightly over the size of the historic
Yeah, I'm
garage.
asking for 30 feet. And hey, guys, this isn't a big deal. I don't have to have this 30 extra feet. I just want it because my wife has a depth perception problem, and driving in the drive into the garage might allow me to not have to be doing a bunch of repairs. But if you have a problem with the 30 extra feet, it's not a big deal. I'll do the 400, or it's actually 430 is the original footprint. The 24 by 14, 18 by 24 is what the pad that's there.
450 is allowed by the guidelines for you, though. And the one thing that staff did notice while we were on site, the location of this particular garage is on the historic location of the garage. And whether or not the wall is built 2 feet from the back of that existing pad or not, that space is still going to be utilized for parking, whether or not it's covered, because they will be entering from the alley. So that is one additional consideration. The other thing that staff recommended prior to approval of this project is that the garage doors will be visible from the alley side street, and that a garage that is designed to look like 2 individual doors rather than one is something that the commission has asked for previously, and that's just for your consideration.
Me personally, I have no issue whatsoever with the size of the garage. I know some commissioners like to hold a hard line on that. I think that when you look at the footprint that this garage takes up on the side, it's really hardly any different at all than what was there before. I do agree about two doors versus one. And as I drive around and look at garages that we've approved, often that does make a substantial difference on how the garage looks. Obviously, the 2 doors seem more appropriate in scale. But again, the size really isn't an issue for me personally.
You mean if it had the extra 30 feet, it wouldn't, that's not an issue for you?
No, that is not an issue.
Yeah, it's not an issue for me.
It's not an issue for me, except for what is the amount we are going to agree upon that we are going to go over the recommended size. Because 2 months ago, we just told somebody in Shepherd that they could not extend theirs, and we made them hold the line to the 450.
It was last month, and I wasn't here last month. And I would...
But you would have been outvoted.
And that's the bad part about having a commission where not everybody's there every single meeting. I think that there are reasons why we put square footages in place, why we are trying to hold some sort of semblance of scale with our size, to have some sort of number to hang our hat on is handy, but I think that sometimes it gets pretty unreasonable.
Right. Well, I mean, I didn't have a problem with the garage in Shepherd. I mean, I thought it was fine, but the discussion all centered around the number in the guidelines, or the 5%. And then another one came up where it could have been it's not even resolved, but the 5% was, it can be an issue too if we don't stick. Anyway, that's all. I'm all for it if it's not bigger. I mean, I think in this instance it's fine. I guess I'm on the exception thing. I just feel like I would like to either stick to the guidelines or go back and make changes where we see we continue to make exceptions.
Well, I think the pendulum had swung, was in the other direction, and as a reaction to that, we inserted a number, and that number, I think, we're running into problems with that number.
Right.
And what it is doing, and what it's not allowing to happen, that really isn't, like you say, an unreasonable request.
I agree. I'm not against the bigger garage. I'm just saying I feel uncomfortable. I mean, I just would like to feel comfortable that when we give an exception, that we're consistent with the exception.
And I do think that that's exactly why the final sentence about additional factors, including, may be considered. And I do think it's something that if we're going to approve something above and beyond that 450, we need to very clearly articulate what about it makes it okay and why that's appropriate, so that we can start to kind of define some of those thresholds. But from when we worked on those guidelines, I don't think that the intention was to say that there can never, ever be anything that's anything above 450 square feet under any circumstances.
Right. And when did that occur, the 450?
This started, these came into effect in July, yeah. So we've only had a few garages since they came into effect, and we've only had maybe one or two that were above that size limit where it's been an issue.
Because there was one in Heritage Hills within the last 9 or 10 months that had a whole apartment behind the garage.
Yes, we'd gotten quite a few proposals for some very large garages with living quarters attached and that sort of thing.
Versus that one was because they didn't think that a second floor or a two-car garage would have been allowed because of the neighbors and what would have happened.
Well, I missed this by 1 month. The guy directly behind me was approved for a 26 by 26. And so it's just my luck, you know.
Timing is everything.
But again, I'd like to have the extra footage, but it's not a make or break deal. I'm not real. I mean, I understand what she's saying, 30 extra feet's, not that much, but where do you draw the line? 30, 40, 50, 100. I get it.
So
I think the square footage for those came in because we do have the guidelines for room additions and what percentage of the home it would be, correct, Katie?
Yep, that was at the same time that we talked about some more specific language on how large an addition to a house could be.
Right. Because you could have another house back there if you're not careful.
Right.
Well, I mean, my other is that if people know that it's 450, then they come before us for 450. But instead, everybody knows there's an exception, so every time we're going to discuss, everybody's going to ask for the bigger or something. It seems kind of unfair to applicants because really then they don't know what can be approved in a way.
It does, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
It does say up to 450, but then it says additional factors may be considered. Could somebody tell me before we vote what the additional factors are that I could rely on? Because otherwise I'm not comfortable voting for something over 450 based on the way this is worded.
So we talked about level of visibility. So if, a garage on a corner lot where you can see it from all the side streets versus a garage that's tucked back completely behind the house that you can't see it unless you're virtually in the backyard. We talked about the size and the massing of other garages, that if surrounding historic garages are large, then it might be appropriate for a new garage to also be above that square footage mark. And I think just like we do all the time when we come up with unique circumstances, there may be other things that come into play that the commission identifies as allowing something to go over. But you just have to evaluate each case to see, are those factors coming into play here, or are there other factors that make this a unique circumstance?
And that's what I was asking. What in this case is it that makes it unique circumstances? Somebody.
What in this case is unique is that the applicant is proposing to build on the previously historic location. They are maintaining the garage setback, the historic garage setback, but they are entering from the alley. And the only thing that is unique in that circumstance is the fact that they will still be utilizing that 30 feet of space regardless of whether or not there's a wall around it, because that is the space in which they will be traveling in and out of that garage.
Angela, are you saying that the back of the garage is on the end of the original footprint?
The front of the garage is on the end of the original
Well,
footprint.
I'm saying
the back of the garage.
the wall
will be
without the
towards
door.
alley.
The wall opposite the door.
Yes,
It's on the edge of
Yes.
the original footprint. So it does not go into the yard any further.
that is accurate.
So it actually comes back towards the
Correct.
The house.
Towards the alley.
alley.
Yes.
I mean, it's either going to be a garage if you approve, or it's going to be driveway, because I have to drive over that to get to the original footprint.
I mean, I could agree that that's a unique circumstance.
I don't have, personally, I don't have an issue with the additional 30 feet, but I can agree with Commissioner Meacham that every time we have this conversation, when a garage or anything else comes up, we essentially are setting precedent for the next applicant to come in and say, but wait, at last month you allowed this. Why won't you allow it for me? That's my concern with not adhering to the guidelines.
Well, in this case, would we, if someone did come with the exact same circumstances next month where the footprint into the yard isn't changing, it's the footprint out to the alley that's changing, would we say no to them because it's, I mean, as you say, if this one is 480, and that one's 500, will that, where is the tipping point? And I know
That's why we have the guidelines.
Right.
So, is there a direction from commissioners?
But you said you are willing to make it 450 feet.
Well, yes. Actually, it would be it's not even going to be, it'll be 18 by 24 instead of 20 by 24. It'll be 432, so it'll be smaller than the 450.
So going back to the original footprint.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Not to exceed 450. Thank you, Counselor.
Then I make a motion to approve HPCA 14-00216, item number 1, with the specific findings in the staff recommendation, and item number 2, with the specific findings that are provided in the staff recommendation, number 1, number 2, number 4, number 5, and number 7. I didn't ask you about that. Are you,
Staff had recommended a door designed to appear as two single doors or using two single doors. How are your thoughts or feelings about that?
Well, the reason I wanted to go with one door, it's just because it's kind of tough to get in there. The alley's thin, and I mentioned before,
so you're turning radius.
There's people that are driving challenged.
Well, even that
saying
aside,
any names,
even that aside, the turning radius from the alley into the garage is tight.
Yeah, it's just tight. I mean,
to swing your
if y'all
car.
really want me to put 2 in, I can. I mean, I'm flexible. It's just I'm thinking down the road, it's just going to be harder to get into 2 singles than it would be to get into one larger, if you can understand what I'm saying.
when the staff made the recommendation, they mentioned that it would be more appropriate scale. Can someone clarify what that means? You're not saying that it's against the guidelines for him to have one door.
I think the guidelines encourage 2 single doors instead of 1 double width door, but it's not a shall, I think it's a should on new garages. And we have, in many other cases, approved a single door, or, double width door on an alley entrance like this, because that is challenging.
again, I think the two doors, at least the appearance of two doors, certainly makes a nice difference. It looks a more appropriate scale. I understand the unique challenges of trying to make that turn in this circumstance, though.
And I'm going to strike number 7 if I said 7. But with the condition that the garage be no more than 450 square feet.
Second.
And we want to, and with the requirement that the applicant submit revised drawings to staff to.
Yes.
Drawings for what?
Showing a garage that is
18 by 24.
That is the revised dimensions that we talked about.
So we agree to that in our motion and our second?
Yes.
Yes, all right. So I have a motion from Heather Clemmer and a second from Ann Zacharitz. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay? Thank you.
So I just need to supply a drawing?
Yep, so we'll need to get revised elevations and plans that show it with the dimensions of no more than 450 square feet.
Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I've had a request for a break. We will take an adjournment until 4 o'clock, a 10-minute break. Thank you. do. Yeah, we do. We have 5. All right. I'll call us back to order. All right. Katie, you ready to introduce the next case?
Okay. HPCA 14-00218 at 429 Northwest 26th Street, Jefferson Park, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Karis Partners LLC by Prime Architects for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace windows elective, and 2, paint brick elective.
Staff had recommended continuing item 1 for additional information and then denying item 2 with prejudice because of specific findings listed there. Great.
Good afternoon. Justin Evans, 429 Northwest 26th Street.
Thank you for coming today.
Do you have anything to add to the staff's recommendations for continuance on the windows and denying?
Yeah, the recommendation was this property has been vacant for 18 years. So we're seeking approval more for just repairing so much than replacing and changing. So we understand that the property needs all new sashes in the windows. Based on the pictures, we feel that we could restore many of the frames, the brick molding that's on the existing structure right now. There are a few windows that are boarded up that there's nothing existing there anymore. That mainly happens on the back, on the second building on the property. The staff's recommendation to continuance, I think, was because we have not provided specifics on the brick molding and on the mullions at this point, because we feel like we can salvage most of those and repair those. And anything that's not repaired, we would go back with pieces that match what's existing on the structure.
So with that documentation, and assuming that documentation complies with guidelines, then that could come back to us. Would it need to come back to us, or would that be administratively?
I think that if they were able to provide documentation of some drawings with the dimensions for the existing brick mold, mullions, et cetera, that are to be replaced, because it does look like there are at least some where there's nothing there. And because in the bid from their contractor, it talks about new mullions, new brick mold, new this. So if we had the condition that all that were still there was to be repaired and any replacement would match the existing with documentation of the existing provided, I think I'm comfortable with that going to staff. If everyone's comfortable with the replacement of the windows otherwise.
But the replacement of the windows is going to be custom. It is not going to be the Marvin window.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry. You're not going to be using a manufactured window. Is that what you're telling us? It's going to be custom. Each one is going to be made specifically.
Yes, what we provided from the Marvin Windows from Consolidated.
So you are
Building
using
Supply.
Marvin windows?
Yes.
You're going to use the Marvin windows where you can't repair the windows?
But we've gotten the Marvin Windows, and if I'm not mistaken, it's the sashes that are all replaced.
Okay. I guess the way you described it made it sound like that you were going to be able to repair the existing windows and then match those.
Okay. We're going to replace the interior portion of the window.
Okay.
On all of the windows.
On so you're going to, all sashes will be
All
replaced.
sashes will be replaced.
Okay.
And what we're going to attempt to salvage.
Is
and
the exterior
That's correct.
trim.
Yes, that's correct.
So is the Marvin window that was submitted, does it fit the criteria?
It does. It's a thermal pane, true divided light, wood window.
Yes, it did
So that
fit the
meets our criteria for replacement windows, and it'll match the configuration of the historic windows, the 6/1. I think they're pretty much all 6/1.
And the documentation you need is in reference to the trim around the windows? Did you have any other comments on painting the building?
I do. I know it's a long shot. It's not a make or break for us as well. I realize we love the brick. We do. That's why we bought the property. We like to restore things to their original beauty. However, on the north side of the building, which is the back of the property, and you can kind of see it in the pictures there. About midway point and up, there is a different colored brick that's on the house. There below was probably the original brick. It looks like the upper portion was replaced at some point. We also, on the west side, on the back side, if you can see that, the west side of the property next to the chimney, there is one large section that's covered up right now by a piece of tin metal, and there is no brick behind it. It is completely open to the interior. There's also excessive settling. Obviously, it's been vacant for 18 years. It has remained dry, which is fairly good. So our concern was with all the settling, with the repointing. We understand how the repointing, what we have to do on that. With the brick mortar, with the missing portion in the upper west side there, about midway, right under the first gable, and then the mismatched brick on the back. It just made it tough if we can make this look uniform and clean. So it was just something that we are requesting if we were giving that latitude.
Did you have any more comments on that, Katie?
I don't know that I have anything additional other than what was in the staff report, just that we in the time I've been here, we've only approved painting brick on one house, and it was I think 1970s house that had very odd multicolored, multi-textured brick, and they painted it kind of a more uniform color, and it was non-contributing to the district and really kind of stuck out. Generally, even if brick has deteriorated or if areas have been patched for some reason or another over time, we've not felt like that was a reason to paint it.
And I think more so than anything, we were just looking for clarification on the guideline, because it said severe deterioration, and I don't know what level of severity is severe. So,
did you have an engineer's report when you bought the property?
Yeah, we do have an engineer's report.
What did they suggest on as far as any piering or structural foundation work?
Foundation-wise, we're looking pretty good. It's not bad. So there are some interior, floor joists that'll have to be replaced and whatnot, but the structure's pretty sound.
I was just talking really about the outside.
The exterior, painting it would be a strictly cosmetic move.
Because I'm wondering why the different brick, how that happened, and why.
It doesn't stick out. You don't notice it just walking by, but once you take pictures, once you look at it, it is obviously midpoint up is all new brick, and I don't know what the explanation would be there.
It was not only repointing, but re-bricking.
That's exactly right, and trying to match that brick, obviously there's some extreme challenges to that.
But the brick on the front is...
Brick on the front, just cracking, just repointing, and then the brick on the side, the missing portions is concerning as far as design and appearance, but we can make do.
But I don't really see that as justification for repainting the whole thing for a surface that's never been painted before. Yeah.
Katie, do we need to continue item 1 or is what they bring in, can staff approve it?
I think if you all are comfortable with the windows being replaced, then staff can review additional documentation of the other trim components.
After all that time, were there any windows that worked?
Are there any windows that work in there? No.
I move to approve HPCA 1400218, item 1, with the findings in the staff recommendation, findings 1 and 2, and striking 3 and adding a third, that the additional documentation will be submitted to staff for approval.
That would be a condition. Is that
Oh, I'm sorry.
the way that would be technically?
Okay, with 1 and 2 specific findings, with one condition that the additional documentation for the window components be submitted to staff for approval.
Second.
A motion for approval of item 1 from Joe Meacham and a second from Ann Zackritz. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Great. Item 1 is approved. Item 2.
I move to deny HPCA 14-00218, item 2 with prejudice, with the findings in the staff recommendation in section D of the staff report.
Second.
I have a motion to deny item number 2 from Joe Meacham, second from Ann Zackritz. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Great. That item is denied.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming today.
HPCA 14-00230 at 2205 Northwest 28th Street, Shepherd, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Buffalo Design LLC by Noel Klaczynski for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace garage door, elective, 2, install deck above garage flat roof beneath existing railing, elective, and 4, replace existing front porch cover with new design, elective. And we have, okay, sorry, the one before that, 225, that's up on your screens, was continued at the beginning of the meeting. I just skipped right on down.
So on this item 230, staff had recommended approval for item 2, install the deck, and recommended a continuance on 1 and 4 for the garage door and item 4.
Actually, I think it's item 3, or it says
It
item 3 on
says
the...
3 in the staff report. It's actually item 4 in
Right.
the agenda, replace existing front porch cover with new design.
Okay. I guess the first thing I want to talk about was the garage door. I know that the staff recommended a continuance on it.
Sorry, are you?
I'm Noelle Klaczynski.
Okay.
Sorry. I've never been
I
here
think you
before.
said that, but yes.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
Thanks.
Never been here before. I'm new at the game, so. Anyway, so yeah, the garage door, the staff recommended a continuance on that, and I realize that, it does have some unique characteristics to it. However, it's not, I've been to the library, I'm trying to find pictures of this house. The only information we can find are from the Sanborn maps from 1955, which is it's about 18 years after the house was built. So we don't actually have anything of original historical, what it looked like originally. But the garage door has square, you can't really tell from this picture very well, but it's a very contemporary looking design, whereas the home itself is more of a colonial revival style home. So although we don't have any proof or any pictures from other documentations, it almost seems obvious that it doesn't look like it goes with the rest of the house. The other thing I wanted to mention is that it's deteriorating, it's not really usable in its intended purpose, which is as a garage to store a car. There's 2 sliding doors. You have to open, only one door can open at a time, and I myself cannot open it because it's so heavy and the rails are so deteriorated. You cannot open the door. I can open it about this much. So it cannot be used as its intended purpose to store a car. And it's deteriorating, so it's not safe. It has a little lock on the front, which has already been busted open by somebody trying to get into our garage. So it's not safe either. So that's kind of, I guess, the reason why I feel that to replace the garage door is important.
How does this garage door open now? I'm not sure what you mean.
It has railings, like you slide.
So from one side opens to
Right.
the other side?
So you can only open one door. Actually, only one door is open. You can only open one door.
Uh-huh.
The door on the left you cannot open. It's just one side, and that's the one that's really hard to open. the width itself, I don't even know if you could get a car through it, a modern-sized car, but, yeah.
Did you have a suggestion for?
I was just going to note if this looks familiar to people, that we saw these garage doors previously for the previous owner, and she had also applied to replace the garage doors, and the commission had encouraged her to look for something that was a design more similar to this design, and we never quite got there, so nothing was ever approved with that application.
I think having a functioning garage door is a good thing. I think that these are definitely unique doors, and I don't think I would jump to the conclusion that they are not original to the house, given that the house was built in 38. I mean, that was not an unfamiliar kind of geometry for that period. It also wasn't uncommon to mix, kind of modern things with colonial things. I don't know that I would jump to the conclusion that they're not original doors, and they do sit, up close to the street. It's not a garage that's set far back. They are really quite visible. So.
What is the percentage of attached garages that we think in Shepherd? Ballpark? Versus attached?
Yeah.
I would say
10%
percentage.
attached?
I would say it's like 20%, no more than. If you think about 25th and 29th, that's where most of them are. There are some on this block on 28th.
Yeah.
The majority is a detached garage. There are some, though, that are engaged and close to the street like this one.
Yeah, it feels like a lot more compared to our other districts, but it's still not.
It was in the late
Predominant
30s houses started making the transition from the detached to the engaged attached garage, and that's when this when we were built. So.
There's no entryway from the garage, from the home. You have to go around outside to get to it.
There is an entrance in the back?
Right. You cannot go from the interior of the house directly into the garage. You have to go out the back door and walk around to either the front or the back, the back door of the home to enter the garage.
That's usually for the much smaller homes, but even for this size, how many square feet is the house?
It's about 1,480 square feet.
Oh, it looks bigger to me.
It does. It's smaller when you get in, yeah. It's not very deep.
I remember seeing this door before, and I don't remember what the discussion was, but I think a functional garage door in some kind of colonial style would be fairly appropriate. I don't know myself.
I would agree with the first part of your statement.
Not
I would
necessarily
not agree with
colonial.
the second part of your statement. Yeah.
But what style, architecturally, what would it be for a
are we
1938 house?
Are we saying that she needs to have a custom door made?
I don't think you'll find something off the shelf that really kind of mimics or replicates that pretty unique pattern that's there.
I wouldn't think.
Yeah. And again, it's unique. It's a fairly character-defining piece of uniqueness, too. So.
I believe the former applicant at one point had a proposal that was doors with cross bars on them, and it was a off-the-shelf kind of thing. So it kind of had that diamond pattern to it, but not quite the same wood overlay. But we never could get the adequate documentation of them. The dimensions weren't right. The drawings that she brought us were kind of distorted. And I think she was out of continuances and then said, I'm just going to leave it as it is. So I don't know if a middle ground design that didn't exactly replicate this, but had some aspects of that look to it would be acceptable. But that was one thing that I know they were moving toward previously.
But a normal garage door is going to have panels. I remember some more discussion about this, and that maybe there could be something affixed to the outside of it that had some semblance of what this is.
Yeah, that rings a bell, but it would still
Something like
it would have sections, albeit perhaps disguised, so that it would actually function as a modern garage door
It would be a
does,
panel
as opposed
door.
to a single panel. I think there are other options and alternatives that would be acceptable other than just a straight replication of this one.
Yeah.
But again, it is a fairly unique door, I think. I also tried to find some historic documentation, some photos and online research and Oklahoman archives, and came up empty-handed.
Yeah.
But
I
'cause I was curious.
I'm good friends with Buddy now at the library, so I know who he is.
I mean, I think this one, I think this one's difficult because garage doors of anything on the house, it is one of those items that is permanent in some ways, but it is one item that generally needs to be replaced over time.
True. But they're also big.
They are big,
They
but
take
when
as
you
a-
have to replace something over time, availability, I can see, could be an issue. And without, anyway,
I'm just afraid that
I don't know.
they're going to continue to deteriorate. They're already in a very bad place as it is, and the longer that it goes on, the worse it's going to get. And it obviously isn't aesthetically appealing, or it doesn't look right. It's not. It's deteriorating. It's an eyesore, I think, in the neighborhood. It doesn't go along with the other homes in the neighborhood. It sticks out. I just don't think that it's, yeah. I guess that's all I have to say.
Angela, did you look at other garage doors in the neighborhood as part of this one? Do you have any comments?
What types of comments? This is an extremely unique door. I've seen nothing else like it in the neighborhood.
I just can't imagine there wouldn't be some standard door that's made that wouldn't be appropriate for this house. We've seen so many doors in historic something.
I think the discussion is not so much what would be appropriate for the house right now. It's that this is a unique, probably historic feature. I think that's where the discussion is landing right this moment. Whether or not there are other doors that would be appropriate to the style of the house, it's very possible. But first you'd have to determine whether or not removing this unique historic fabric was an appropriate move, and then follow the guidelines as to whether or not replacement in kind was the most viable option for this historic feature. And if not, I don't know that at this point we've had any documentation to indicate that it's absolutely impossible to match this possibly historic feature. If it were to come to light that it were absolutely impossible to match this historic feature, then I think we would be in a better position to recommend approval for something that is not necessarily the same door, but appropriate to the style of the house.
Yeah, I think the door that's proposed is entirely appropriate for the house if there was not a historic garage door there. I think if you had a, metal or whatever 10-year-old garage door, then the proposed replacement, I don't think that we'd have any objection to it, and it's a style of door that we frequently approve. I think the concern is more that the existing door is so unique.
Are we saying that it needs to be a sliding door?
I don't think so. I don't think the function is critical. The way it functions is critical. I don't.
Because if you had to break this one up, then it would have to be panels or, I don't know. Have you explored having it made?
I have, and for the amount of money the house costs, I'm not going to do it. I mean, they want $8,000 for a custom door, and that's just not going to happen. I can't afford that. So, yeah.
But we have approved many garage doors to make them functional that were of the sliding variety many times, or 5 times at least that I can think of. So I think an applicant deserves to have a functional garage door. Maybe we can make some kind of, some way of making that work for her.
I
Do you agree with functional? Is that
I
good?
agree with functional, but I think this door is so unique that it, in my mind, overrides that.
You live in the neighborhood, you could open it up for maybe every day. For
I'll swing by, right, yeah.
I agree. To me, this door is a character-defining feature of this house. Unfortunately, I don't find the unique circumstances.
I do feel like it would be best to continue the item and see if, and as you say, as Angela said, see what we can find. Is there, I know the previous applicant kind of quit and sold the house. So maybe it's possible to find something that would be a happy medium. We've had to accept in the past those times when, there's something character defining about a house that has been lost by accident, man-made or natural. We have documentation of it, we can mourn the loss, but we do need to provide something that's functional, and it's not going to break the bank in doing so. We've talked about that quite a bit in some of our neighborhoods. So if you're okay with continuing the issue of the garage door to provide you and staff some time to do some research.
Okay.
Then I would make a motion on HPCA-14-00230, item 1, to continue that to the February 4th meeting.
Second.
February 4th?
February 4th.
Oh, there's not one in January?
There is, but you'd have to have the documentation in next week. Also known as Tuesday.
Okay.
I have a motion from Heather Clemmer, a second from Ann Zacharitz to continue item 1 to the February 4th meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there an aye from that individual? Opposed?
Sorry.
Opposed, please say nay. All right, thank you. Sorry. I'm still adjusting to this role. All right, so let's move on to item 2. Install the deck above the garage, flat roof beneath the existing railing. So this is an existing...
So there is a railing. Some of the photos in your PowerPoint are older from the previous application and don't show the railing there, but there is an existing railing that was approved as part of that previous application. There is an existing door that opens onto that roof, and they would just like to put a proper deck floor on that space.
I move to approve HPCA 14-00230, item 2, install the deck with the findings in the staff recommendation in section D of the staff report.
Second.
I have a motion from Joe Meacham to approve item number 2, with a second from Ann Zacharitz. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Item 2 is approved. Item 4, replace existing front porch cover with new design.
Is that number 3 or number 4?
Staff had recommended a continuance.
And I would say we struggled with this one. This doesn't look like our typical historic porch cover portico. A lot of times when we see these metal columns, those are clearly replacement, but for the age of this home, we weren't really sure whether this would have been original or not, and didn't really have any evidence of that something else had been there previously. It's like sometimes you can see the footprint of a former porch column on the concrete. So I guess we were erring on the side of being conservative and saying if we don't know whether it's historic or not, but others may have more.
Do the guidelines allow for metal columns on the front of the house?
They would if it was the original column.
Have you looked into wood columns?
Yes, that was what I was proposing, our wood columns.
I'm sorry?
That's what I was proposing.
Oh, that's what you're proposing?
Our wood columns.
Oh, new,
right.
okay, new wood
And-
columns.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
If you look at page 12
Yeah.
of the, yeah.
And a lot of other homes in the neighborhood, I did provide some examples of a similar structure. And this is kind of what, I guess it's on page 17 of 18. Quite a few homes in the neighborhood have this, a taller, like half circle underneath the roof line. I don't know how to describe it. Where the roof meets, where the upside down triangle is, or the triangle is basically on the front there. If you were to take that off, and you'd see like a half circle. And if you look at that picture that we provided, there's maybe 3 or 4 houses in the neighborhood that have that same front with the wood columns on the side. The one right next door has it actually, in that like half circle. So we want to do, we want to stay within the historical, guidelines and to make it look or appear like the other homes in the neighborhood. And so that's where we're kind of going with that one.
What are you proposing to put underneath on the ceiling of the porch?
It would just be wood, like, I don't know if I know what you're asking. So underneath where...
It's curved.
Right, so it would be wood. The wood would be curved.
On the...
Right, on the inside.
Sometimes you'd see that as a tongue and groove, something to help make that curve, tongue and groove wood.
Right. I think it would be, I just wondered what you, I think that might be difficult just to curve a piece of plywood up there. So maybe the tongue and groove, or look at, I think some of the other porches have it.
Uh-huh.
And then you just have the boards like that, and you wouldn't have to curve anything.
Oh, okay.
Have you looked, so when you go to that kind of half circle underneath the triangle, you're going to end up exposing the brick wall of the house that you can't see right now. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
So have you been able to pop your head up in there and look at that brick wall, or make sure that that is a brick wall that is getting exposed?
No, and that was kind of the discussion that we had with the contractor is, we don't know what we're going to find. Maybe we'll take it down and it'll look like this already. Who knows?
Well, and I was going to say that may help to establish the historic condition, if you can see some evidence of something else up there, that maybe there was something like what you proposed originally or something.
Yeah, I just don't know.
I would like to see a little more detailing on, that's why I was asking about what is under there. I mean, you're just showing really a line. That's really not showing the material or how the front of the material is going to cover the edge of the wood underneath or anything. It's not, I don't think it's telling us everything.
Okay. What about the wood columns? Could we at least replace the metal with wood columns? Would that be allowable?
I'd rather have the wood myself.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I think we want you to, I would like to see a new roof. I don't think we're saying that we don't want a new one, but just want to know exactly what it's going to look like.
The existing closed-in, to me, just does not look very good. I think what
No, it
you
doesn't.
have here is much nicer myself.
No, it's not. It doesn't look nice.
Is that wood, kind of a wood flashing on the actual house, the white?
Yeah.
It's a
I
wood-
think that's what it is. We don't
you
really
call
know what
that
the purpose
flashing?
of that is either. It was,
Jeff, is that flashing?
Kind of.
Wood, why would you,
I
why would they
think,
do wood?
you tar it, and then you've got this big tar line, and then somebody goes, hey, let's cover up the tar line, then we'll put a piece of wood over the tar and paint it white. It kind of grew,
There may be some flashing.
There's probably some flashing underneath there somewhere.
There are some very different kinds of wood treatments on the outside of houses in Shepherd that have vertical planks and just all sorts of, that are different.
So would that stay, that white, whatever we were calling it, flashing
No,
stay?
she's saying remove.
That's going to go, right?
No, I wasn't planning on removing that or the roof, just the front triangle and the scallop.
So
That's the
that
idea.
flashing would stay there?
Right.
Because I don't know what you would have underneath that.
Well, that exactly, and that's why we would keep it, because we don't
That
know
could be
what's
a mess.
there.
That could be a really
And
a difficult thing to clean off if there's, I don't know how it was affixed to it. But this is a much nicer design to me.
I feel comfortable with the design, but I don't feel comfortable with the details because I think it's going to be hard to prove in the end that you built it like that because it's not specific enough.
Okay.
And so we wouldn't want you to build something and then we go, well, it just doesn't look exactly like that because there's got to be some trim pieces and some other pieces.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
So.
Are you don't want to continue, do you? But I'd have to.
Well, could we at least just go ahead with the wood columns and then continue the top part for later? I mean, is that allowable?
Can we do that?
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, and you could stop at that point if you so desired.
But the item for consideration, can you only do half of an item?
I suppose we could approve it. I mean, we did that sort of the same thing with the addition last month, that we approved the addition with the condition that they come back for additional review of the windows on the rear of the addition. So I suppose we could approve it with condition that they return for additional review of the gable end on the porch cover.
So it would be approval of the entire item. You're not saying that you're just going to take a piece of, say, number 4. It would be saying we approve number 4, as Katie explained, with the condition that whatever it is your condition is. So it's the whole item, but the remaining portions that you don't have the information for yet are the conditional part of the whole, of number 4.
But as I understand, the condition is that we want to see additional details.
Right, details of the upper portion,
Yeah.
but that would approve the project with the exception of the, we'll call it a canopy, is what we're calling it today.
So you're saying you would approve the bottom, and then later she would bring additional information and you would review the top? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes. I would be willing to do that because if the top never got done, I think that the columns would still be a move towards the original design.
Well, then you would be approving an amended item, because you would, in that situation, have to do the whole or not the whole, because you couldn't just approve the bottom and then...
Right. No, approve it with the condition that the upper portion, that the canopy has to come back with more specific design.
Come back to staff or come back to the commission?
Well, I don't know.
Because, see, that's getting you in that same position of splitting the
I don't know,
item.
Katie, what...
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of inclined, if it's issues with the way it's drawn and the way the details look, that the way that connects to the columns is hand in hand with that. So I think it probably makes, I'm sorry to delay the project more, but I think it probably makes sense if we want to see it again, to see the whole thing again.
Proving half of something doesn't seem the best.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then I make a motion, well, did you?
No, go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say, I make a motion to continue item 3 on HPCA-14-00230 to the February 4th meeting.
Second.
A motion to continue item number 4 from Heather Clemmer, second from Ann Zakritz. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
HPCA 14-00231 at 916 Northwest 20th Street, Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Trey Featherly for certificate of appropriateness to 4, remove front planters at porch, elective. 5, pour concrete at front wall of porch, elective. 6, replace existing front porch columns, elective. 7, infill existing door opening within historic house, elective. 8, infill door opening at addition, elective. 9, replace window back to door at addition, elective. 10, replace 2 windows in addition on the east, elective. 11, replace 4 windows in the addition on the west, elective. 12, convert 2 windows and wall space to door and side windows, elective. 13, construct garage, elective. And 14, add paving to tie into existing driveway and alley, elective. And I'll let Angela fill in more details if I'm not getting this correct, but these drawings are not new drawings. It's just, they're not changes to what you had before. It's drawings that previously didn't really copy right and had some things omitted. So it's corrections to those. It's not a revision to the proposal. I know we've been trying to be hard on people about bringing new stuff to the meeting. And I was also going to just note that practically everything in this one is just recommended for approval, and we kind of split those out into separate items. But I think if they're just a straight approval with no conditions and no unique circumstances, there would be no reason that someone couldn't make a motion to approve all of those at once with the specific findings in the staff report if you agreed with those. We don't need to take 13 motions.
Hi, I'm Trey. I'm the property owner. Hi.
I think you should, be our poster child for following guidelines. I carefully read this because I continue to read and go back, and every one of them, you have such a long list, and every single one of them was recommended for approval by staff.
Thank you.
Is that correct? So it can be done. I thought it was awesome.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate
Angela
it.
cracked the whip on me pretty hard.
Angela cracked the whip. Well, thank you, Angela. Willing participants are always, the other half of it. So,
Thank you.
Anyway, I don't have any comments on it other than that.
All right, any other questions or comments on, let's see, one of the items did have a condition attached to it, item number 5. That is pouring concrete at front wall of porch.
Right. I want to clarify that. What we're trying to do is, there's a picture that shows some sagging, and I want to make sure that the footing underneath the column is strong. And so somebody, right there on that picture, somebody has come in, I'm going to say in the 90s, and they tore out the original columns, and we want to put back craftsman-style columns to give it the integrity. And so if we have to pour back to level it up or jackhammer down to make it a solid foundation to support the front of the house.
And the condition was that the material of the front wall be based either on the documented historic condition or be determined to be consistent with other historic structures. That's a reasonable condition?
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I thought it was more likely that it would be concrete, personally, after looking at the picture.
Right.
All right, any other questions or comments on any of the items? Otherwise, I'd be happy to entertain a motion.
I want to. Let's see. I move to approve HPCA 14-00231, items 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, with the findings in the staff recommendation in Section D of the staff report.
Since item 5 had a condition attached to it, does it need to move separately?
If the motion includes the condition, if you say,
Okay.
and if the applicant agrees with the condition,
Sure,
then
absolutely.
it can go as part of the
Okay.
whole motion.
Why am I not seeing?
But you need to state the condition and,
At the okay, at the very
Very last
end.
item, yeah.
Okay. Specific.
Even though it's item 5, it's...
Okay, that's what was confusing. With the condition for item 5, that the material of the front wall be based on either the documented historic condition or be determined to be consistent with other historic structures.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Joe Meacham with a second from Heather Clemmer. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
HPCA 14-00232 at 415 West Eubanks, Edgemere Park, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application of Charlie Bullard and Casey Kaiser for certificate of appropriateness to enclosed side porch elective.
Thank you. This item was recommended for approval. Are there any questions or comments on this one?
Why does it look like there's new construction?
So there used to be lattice there, and it had all been on that upper portion of that side porch, or the upper portion of the first floor of the porch. There was lattice, and that's since been taken off and it's been repainted. And you've got pictures from a couple of different dates. So this was, the one you see now was earlier, and then they've since painted all of the wood to be the same black as the upper portion.
Is there a door?
There is, I don't believe there's actually a door. There's just an opening there on the side. Yep.
What? So it's going to be glass but not a door?
Right. And let me double check.
Looks like they're proposing to fill in below.
Yep, they're proposing to fill in below on that side, and yeah, there wouldn't be any kind of
no door.
exit out of there, out of that little side porch. It would just be all enclosed.
Any other questions or comments? And did we have comment from the Neighborhood Association on this one?
And the neighborhood said that given that it is kind of an already altered portion of the house, that this didn't seem to have any additional adverse effect, something along those lines. I'm not quoting them exactly, but they supported approval.
Okay.
I move to approve HPCA 14-00232 with the findings in the staff recommendation and section B of the staff report. There are no conditions.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion from Mary Jo Meacham to approve HPCA 14-0232, a second from George Massey. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That item is approved.
Now, before you get too excited, remember we still have 3 that were
Yes.
bumped to the end.
Okay, so we need a motion to, do we? Where we move them to the end of the agenda.
And here we are at the end.
All right.
We're at the end.
Mark different
199, the first one up?
Yes. So HPCA 14-199 at 625 Northwest 15th Street, Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration of possible action on application of Joseph and Vicki Angus by Adam Landman of Sam Gresham Architects for certificate of appropriateness to 3 installed doors, sidelight windows, and transoms at previously approved addition required.
So staff had recommended a continuance on this item.
Okay, my name is Joseph Angus, and I was here last month. And two things that got my attention last month, you know, when you're talking about these openings for these doors and these windows, someone mentioned that the front door was one large piece of glass, which we have used on these two back doors, these two large pieces of glass. And someone else noted that there were some craftsman elements to the house. And on the south facade, primarily above the bay window, which is actually the master bedroom, we have these vertical, what are they called, muttons? On the windows. There's 3 on each window, and I sort of took my cue from these windows with the vertical muttons on them. And for the top left and right windows, you have this drawing, the resubmitted drawing. I've just basically copied those 2 windows on the left and right on the top from the windows that are currently on the front of the house. I did a little bit of research into the craftsman style, and some of the hallmarks which was popular in the United States from like the late 1890s till about 1930. Our house was built in 1906 and had major renovations done to it in the mid-1930s. So it seemed to me the craftsman style would be totally appropriate, you know, to maintain the character of this house. And so on the left and right windows, I just used the most simple form, which is the horizontal line, to break up these large windows. And the top left and right windows use vertical lines. And in the large window above the 2 doors, combine one simple horizontal line with 3 vertical lines. I think there was some question about mixing the different styles, but currently on the front of the house we have this craftsman style, right above it what I would call Tudor style with these crosshatched windows. To me, the Tudor style, it's like the time of Shakespeare and, you know, that around the 16th century. And they seem to me a little bit out of place. So I'm not sure what the objection is to mixing the vertical and the horizontal, because they seem to me, you know, the most basic forms of drawing you could have. And the final thing, that this door will not be seen by anybody except me and my wife. You know, these currently are on the front of the house, which to me are a little jarring. The Tudor next to the craftsman. But this is just simple straight lines, and I think it's somewhat original, and that's what I was trying to do with the mixing the horizontal and the vertical.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the commission? To me, it seems like a lot going on that one element to mix all those different horizontals and verticals into one sort of continuous window/opening. I would agree with staff's finding that it doesn't really quite work very well, even though it is on the back side of the house. It doesn't. We still require that those things fit with the overall character of the house. I don't think that these do. That's my opinion.
I understand where staff is coming from, but on this particular one, I think it's in the rear. They already changed the design somewhat. I don't think that, I mean, they have so many windows there. If they really want to show something else of this time, I'm not against it.
I think part of the objective is to get a central kind of entry focus on the back of the house where there exists, you know, it's pretty blasé as is. So.
Right. I mean,
yeah.
I think we would all probably have different ideas on how to design it.
Right.
I don't think this is, I think you came back with what, we said we didn't want an arch. So, I understand the comments from staff, but I think this could work also.
Katie, is what they're proposing not clear glass? Noticed in the recommendations for continuance that number 4 says clear glass is required. Usually we don't state that unless that wasn't what was proposed.
I think in our original proposal, we went ahead and gave you the transmittance, and that we do that with all of our glass. So it's clear glass that's being proposed on the windows.
Sorry, I'm trying to remember this one versus other ones.
Well, and it is very different from the last time we saw it. There seems to be limited documentation. I mean, we have the drawing that's on page 2 of the attachments, but then the information from Pella that's on the rest of the pages is a little less detailed, other than the door. I'm not seeing what the windows are going to look like other than in the drawing.
Okay. Well, we'd be happy to give that to staff if that's...
Because I think that was
I mean,
the other...
we're spec'ing the window type. We didn't actually include the window with the spec buttons and mullions in it. So we'd be happy to give that to staff if we can get approval on the design.
So are we just talking about the buttons, the dividers? Is that what we want clarification?
Yeah, to see those in the...
So the sheet that we have from Pella says traditional pattern that has removable solid pine wood bars, steel pendant joints, and fitted to glass stops with steel clips and tacks. And I feel like our guidelines specifically talk about muntins, not allowing muntins that are removable.
Now, these would be the integral, and so they'd have them on the inside, the outside, and the interior of the glass. And so
But they're not removable, are they?
They're not removable. No, they're permanently adhered to the windows. So there's usually a lot more documentation that comes with a window spec on this, but we just use the integral divided lights on the windows, which is allowed on new construction.
Any other comments or a motion?
I would say if the commission feels comfortable approving this, we would probably want those additional specs showing that it's...
Sure.
Yep.
For clarification on the door, does the door have buttons? Or is
No,
it just solid?
the doors are actually open. Those are open glass.
Okay, because I've got 2 different ones that are circled. One's on page 4 and the other one on page 6.
Yeah, I think there might be some of the older documentation.
Okay.
That's so the doors would be the open glass as per the actual drawing of the elevation.
Okay.
I move to approve HPCA 1400199, items 3, with the let's see, I'll do this. With the following findings, let's see, portion, number 1, number 4, with conditions that the specifications for the window buttons be submitted to staff for approval.
That's good.
Is that enough?
And then you want to clarify which of the doors in our packet was the
okay.
the doors on page 4 instead of page 6?
Okay. And
Is that right?
the door, are you talking about the design or the door itself?
the design of the door.
Oh, okay. Because it's, okay, and to clarify, the design of the door will be the two clear glass, no button, no dividers on page 4 of 9, with a transom that has 8 panes above.
Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion from Joe Meacham, second from Ann Zacharitz. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Nay. All right, that item is approved.
Thank you.
HPCA 14-00212 at 1001 Northwest 17th Street, Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Jennifer and Brett Vogler by Adam Landman of Sam Gresham Architects for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace wood fence with brick and iron fence and gate, elective. 2, remove driveway apron, elective. 3, install new apron for driveway and alley, elective. And 4, construct new carport as extension of new brick fence, elective, and that portion of it has been revised. So I was going to note that we received an email from a citizen regarding carports in general. It wasn't really specifically aimed at this application. And Adam, if you want a copy, I'll...
Sure, if you'd forward it to me, that'd be great.
Sure. And so you all have that at your seats to look at as we review this. I can hand you a copy right now.
Oh, that'd
if
be
you wanna. Here, yeah. It's brief.
All right, staff had recommended approval on items 1, 2, and 3, and then continuing item 4.
I move to approve HPCA 14-00212, items 1, 2, and 3, with the findings in the staff recommendation and section D of the staff report.
Second. I have a motion from Mary Jo Meacham and a second from George Massey to approve items 1, 2, and 3. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Great. So 1, 2, and 3 are approved. Let's talk about item 4.
Let's talk about item 4. I think it's interesting to note, if I could start out here, that it is difficult in this particular situation. I would agree with Marva's email, that it's difficult for you guys to come to some sort of decision where there is no guideline for you to base your decision on. I do realize that the height limitation has been exceeded for one type of structure that is not this type of structure, and it is we're beyond the height for a pergola. We're not beyond the height for a garage. This is neither. We're within the square footage for a garage, but maybe outside the square footage for an additional structure on the site. And so there's a lot of question in my mind as well as I pursue this for the clients as to how to best achieve what they're looking for, and I guess we look to this council to help us understand whether our pursuit is valid. I initially spoke with staff about the project, and it seemed like something that has been approved in the past. Therefore, I pursued the project wholeheartedly for my client, and then I run into the fact that, well, we don't have guidelines for this, and I understand that things may come up without guidelines. However, if something has been approved in the past, then and staff recommends that I continue with the project instead of me going to my client and saying it's not going to happen, then it's kind of a question in my mind. Where do we go from here?
I'll be happy to comment. I think, I think everybody spent a lot of time contemplating this, so I don't want you or your client to think that it wasn't given quite a lot of thought by, I think, all commissioners, myself and Angela and Katie and everybody else. But my first would be, I just don't think, it's just not a pergola, I don't think. It's not a car, the guidelines don't address carports, and if we move it into some kind of pergola, tried to, which would seem like a natural destination, it just says, do not add a pergola or a trellis to a prominent elevation where none historically existed. New pergolas not visible from the public right-of-way may be constructed in backyards. I just don't really see how personally I can get around those guidelines after studying different ways that it might happen. And unfortunately, I think we do have to be harder on people that have side lots, or corner lots too. So, and we've ran into this before. So, corner lot people kind of have a different situation, because if this would have been in the inside, maybe there could have been a way to figure it out or something. But I just don't think that I think the guidelines are clear here that it would not be allowed.
My concern with the proposed structure is it's very highly visible from both Ollie, 17th, and the alleyway. It's, as Commissioner Meacham said, it's a corner lot. I think there's additional considerations there.
I guess another fact that I kind of have spoken to clients about is that they initially applied for a new garage prior to your rule that they could tear down their garage in years past, the 450 square foot rule of a dilapidated garage, which they had clearly on their site, and they weren't allowed by this commission to build a new garage at that time. And so they went ahead with a substantial renovation to the existing garage through the HP commission, and now it's something they would like to keep, not as a garage. It doesn't work as a garage. And so we're kind of running into a problem where the guidelines are starting to, ask people to do things and then say, well, now it's okay to do this. And it's really neither here nor there, I suppose, on this particular application, but it's something that I'm being forced to deal with between you, a client, and a project that brings to my mind the question of what are we capable of doing when the guidelines either are not present or they're being changed. And so I think that's actually a situation that's arisen on this project in both cases.
I don't even think you have to be specific on this particular one. I think that it's an overall guideline and expectation of people in the historic districts that the overall integrity of the property is maintained.
Yes.
And so I don't think it's really a question of maybe a smaller carport was approved at one time, or this year we do, because I think every year, every month, the commission struggles to be as consistent as possible.
Sure.
So, but I just think this one is really not, it's not like you can delve into specifics in the thing. I think it's easily, for me, it's easily answered. It's just too big of something. It compromises the historical integrity of that corner and property.
Too big and too visible.
And I don't know
I've
if
seen
you were here
staff
earlier, but
recommended to continue this, and so that's where a lot of these comments are coming from on my part, because what is the point in me continuing a project in which we're not going to approve something like this on a corner lot? What am I left with, I guess, is the question, and that's where I'm dealing with this sort of interplay of contradiction, I suppose, between guidelines either being present or not being present for a carport, and I think the citizens themselves are emailing you about the fact that maybe we need to have some guidelines for this specific type of thing before we allow it to happen. But
I do want to say that while we don't have a section in the guidelines on carports, we do have a section on accessory structures.
I agree.
Aside from garages, that talks about accessory buildings more than 6 feet tall should be compatible in size, scale, proportion, spacing, texture, setback, et cetera. Those guidelines aren't, those aren't giving us that it can be this many feet, it can be this high, this wide, this deep. it is using more subjective terms like compatibility. But I think that it sounds like the commission doesn't feel like the scale of this and the level of visibility of this meets that term of being compatible.
And I'm getting at the point that perhaps if I moved the location and changed the scale of the project, are we still looking at the same decision? Because of the idea that we continue it based on the idea that the structure is too large, okay, and it's too visible. Well, maybe I move it to another location and make it smaller. Are we still dealing with the fact that you don't want to have a car?
I mean, I think that if you can clearly point out in the guidelines, without exception, that follows, I think that's where we're having a hard time. We cannot find a way in the guidelines to, so I think, I don't know, was your expectation that it would be
No, my expectation is that I'm getting a
first-
continuance on something that I don't know how I would continue on. Yeah, I don't know how I would continue at this point, so why would I ask for a continuance instead of a denial so that I can move forward with something else on the project?
And that's simply, I mean, staff generally doesn't recommend a denial until you're out of continuance. It's just to give the applicant as many shots as we can to come to a solution.
And I'm going
of
to
course,
ask for the continuance, so just trying to get information as to how I would do this. It is a prominent corner lot, I agree. It's a kind of a difficult situation where they've put a lot of money into their garage, and now they sure would like to have a different garage. And so I do have plenty of options in my court, but I'm trying to get a better feel so that I can approach everybody correctly on this.
Is it because they have more cars to?
Yeah, it's a family of 4, and they've got teenagers coming in, and everybody's driving, and they don't have actual covered parking for anything at this point.
So 2 cars can go in the actual garage that has been renovated?
The garage doesn't fit their cars. The existing garage is not wide enough for a vehicle to actually fit in right now. So they renovated it into a play space and a sort of upstairs. They added a second story to it that they use as a guest house.
So smaller cars would fit in this 2-car garage?
And if they didn't have the family they have, I think they could get a smaller vehicle.
No.
But
Any other thoughts, comments?
Just, I'm very familiar with this property, this intersection, and in my opinion only, I don't know how you can modify this proposed design that would fit on this particular lot.
I would agree.
You know, I think the fact that the guidelines are silent about carports may partially be because they are such a foreign form to an historic district. Not that there might be something that we would consider ever, or that it might be something that we should visit in the guidelines, but the fact that it's silent on it, I mean, it hasn't been something that's really come up.
We did approve one on 20th Street about a year and a half ago, and then when the new owners of the home, it was a remodeled home, finally came in, they said, you know, we'd rather have walls. And the remodeler just had a carport. Remember that one? Mm-hmm. So then we added walls to it. But there was not, it was a garage or a carport.
Sure.
Now we're talking about a garage and a carport.
Sure.
Of course.
Yeah.
And was that an inline property, or was that on a corner?
It was inline. It was not on the corner.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of carports in the time I've been here. I know the commission has approved numerous carports over the years, but I do think they've been a more modest size, and they've been on an interior lot where it wasn't. I think the visibility of this is just a big factor.
I understand. I will ask for a continuance from you on the project as staff recommended, just to in which case I may withdraw. But I think in my understanding of how the commission looks at this, we're looking at either a situation where they're willing to build a new garage that's more functional and more appropriate for their house, or they're willing to let go of this idea together. So those are the options I'd like to take back to them with a continuance, and then we'll take it from there with you guys.
Okay. Any other comments or a motion?
Continue
January?
January would be great.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to continue. Item number 4.
I move to continue HPCA 14-00212, item 4, to the
January
7th meeting.
Second. I have a motion from Joe Meacham and a second from George Massey to continue to the January meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you.
HPCA 14-00213 at 326 Northwest 19th Street, Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of John Russell by Adam Landman of Sam Gresham Architects for certificate of appropriateness to 3, replace 2 windows at rear of house with smaller windows, elective. 4, replace front side porch window with doors, elective. 6, relocate driveway, elective. 7, install driveway gate, elective. And 10, install new tile at new front door, elective. And the commission heard this application previously. Several items from the initial proposal have since been withdrawn.
If I could jump into this real quick on items 2 and 3, the 2 recommended for continuance. I would ask that item 2 be approved with the conditions that we get the proper window to Angela. I think there's been some confusion on Muntin size on these, and they're 1.25 inches on the back windows. Otherwise, I think our window spec is correct in terms of using actual divided lights, because this is on the existing house, using clear glass and just changing the size of those windows. Otherwise, I think all the documentation has been we've worked with staff to make sure that they have the proper documentation on these windows. We just would like to change the size, and I think the question of simulated divided lights versus true divided lights, because it's on the existing house and it's not new construction, we'd like to use actual divided lights. In other words, individual panes of glass on these and match them exactly to the windows are there, just make them shorter. And so, and infill the brick below with a matching brick. And on item 3, I guess I would ask the commission to consider the fact that every opening on the front of this house has a divided light situation with wood muttons and mullions in it. And as far as that one opening being a tinted solid sheet of glass, I would say it's the exception to the front of the house, not our proposal of putting wood divided lights on the front of the house. So.
Okay, any questions or comments on this one? You want to tackle a few of the items, or however you want to do it?
My questions were in regard just to the front.
Yes.
The replacement door, is the one that's on the back an original door?
The one on the back was put on when that addition was created. None of that side is original to the house. That little sunroom is something that was built on to the house, and so they were built on to that piece when it was put in, but they're not original to the house. So I guess we could give them grandfather them in as historic based on the fact that they were built on. I'm not sure on the timing that was, but I know staff put that in the report.
A certificate of appropriateness was located for the enclosure of the side porch to turn that into a library mid-'80s, late 80s.
Is it not the same thing that's shown on the Sanborn maps?
The side porch is original. The enclosure of the openings is not.
Oh, okay.
So what we're trying to do here is replace the large tinted glass on the front of the house with a divided light wood door that matches the back of that same room, which I would say would be more in tune with the elevation, having every other opening showing that particular type of condition.
Katie, could you explain your finding on number 3, on where you say the new doors are not recommended on the front?
We have a guideline for doors that, let me find it. Says new door openings in the front facade of a primary building are not permitted. Now, it is a porch that has since been enclosed, that, has been altered over time, but that's what that guideline says.
I guess my interpretation there is that it's an existing opening on the house.
What do the windows look like on the side?
Those are just giant sheets of glass. Actually, could we flip to that image, because you can see it up there. Those are giant tinted pieces of glass, which is the window on the front, which I think does not fit the rest of the front of the house. So we'd like to infill an existing opening with a door that matches.
But you're not replacing the other?
We're not trying to do anything on this side, no. That may be something they look at down the road, but that's not part of what they're trying to do at this point. They're trying to focus on that front facade and the rear.
Did you look at something like, so I'm looking at page 9 of the staff report, the picture of the front of the house, and on the first floor, there's a window that is arched, but the muntins go all the way to the top of the arch, and it would appear that it opens in the middle, something like that for that door opening?
Instead of having the open transom, we have, I guess, in following kind of what staff recommended was to just work with that door, just match what's already there. And so the client was happy with that if they felt like they could get that approved. Certainly there are actual physically arched doors that would also fit that location, and those are also on the house. I can tell you for a fact that the client would be fine with that particular condition on there if we feel that's more appropriate for the facade on that elevation. So,
I'm sorry, which is more appropriate?
I like your question. I don't know. I'm not going to presume to say, but if you're looking at this facade that's in the photograph above you, what we're seeing are several different conditions. One is an arch-topped casement window. On the top, we're seeing single-hung, or actually those are double-hung windows. And then what we're proposing is an actual square door with arched openings in this, and to leave the transom above the door as per the back, which is exactly right there in that image. So we're proposing to match that.
So that's what your clients feel is most appropriate?
Actually, no, I'm not saying that's what they feel is most appropriate. That's what we're kind of led through staff to believe would be the most acceptable condition to get doors on the front that also kind of help this whole thing look a little bit a little bit more consistent on that facade.
I mean, I wouldn't mind if it looked like the front door, a square top without the two bottom arches.
I think...
I mean, a flat top, that's, so there's three options there.
Okay. I think what what I would like to do to kind of get somewhere on this is propose an arched French door opening with divided lights on this, as per the rest of the openings on the house. But I really think we're just trying to match what's there and get this
So it would look like
functional.
Oh, wait.
You'll find it. Keep going.
Go back to the front of the house. So you're saying it would look like the window immediately to the right?
I am saying it
opening?
would look like that. Do we have a photograph of the side porch door? Because it's exactly what I'm talking about. Yes, the back side porch door. There you go. There's an arched top French door. It's not quite as high as an arch, Jeffrey, but it is.
This one, the opening that we're looking at here is a fully rounded arch.
It's a full round arch, that's right. And so just for clarity, I'm trying to say that it is a rounded top French door, full arch.
And
that
it
we would propose
behind, it would still be behind the wrought iron?
The wrought iron remains, that's correct. It would have an in-swing.
And is that one original? The lower arch?
I could not speak to that.
Appears to be?
It may be, yes.
It's an original opening.
I think it appears to be that opening is original, since all of these other ones we're talking about were infilled. That was not infilled, that was there.
So are your options the one that's on the drawing or a custom door that is just two pieces and fills in the entire arch? Is that what you're...
Yes, that would be our option. Actually, what we would do is a square door, and we would go ahead and put a transom on there that made it all look continuous.
Oh.
But I wouldn't try to order that tall of a door for this project. I'd probably just do a square door and then...
So there would be a thicker kind of piece between the operable doors and the...
Correct. Yeah, as per the photograph above where you see that piece running across horizontally, but...
Right. I think that would probably look better than the doors that match the doors on the back of the house. I don't really care for the doors on the back, the two arched open doors, or the two doors with the arched windows inside the larger arched windows.
I understand.
I don't really care for that.
I understand.
I think that what you're proposing sounds like it's probably more appropriate. My hesitation is one, I don't know exactly what that looks like. My hesitation number two is that it reminds me of a discussion we had fairly recently on another enclosed side porch that went to the Board of Adjustment, where we were debating between mimicking historic and being compatible with historic.
Sure.
And I want to make sure that what we're doing here fits within the guidelines, is still compatible,
Yes.
and doesn't try and pretend that it's something old that's not old.
Yeah.
That's my thought.
Sure. Well, I think our argument here remains the same, which is every other opening on the front has these divided light conditions. This is the one that stands out. I think we put a divided light condition in this that meets the guidelines as far as construction goes. We're doing the overall facade a favor, and we're actually upgrading a previous decision that was made to let them just put tinted glass on the front of the house, which I don't think is entirely appropriate for that.
Yeah. And the fact that it's a door on the front of the house appears to be kind of fly in the face of the guidelines, but it's also, like was mentioned, it is a porch that was probably wide open at one point, and so it's sort of a modified opening
Yes.
to begin with. It's not as though we're punching a new hole.
Right.
So I understand that there might be some latitude for a unique circumstance in that case?
Yes.
At least in my mind, so.
Then are you okay with continuing item 4 so that we can see what that door would look like?
If that needs to come back to the commission, that's fine. Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Because I think that would, as you were saying, we want something that fits with the front of the house.
Yes.
But doesn't mimic.
Right.
And I don't think we can put that in a condition
No.
and leave that for staff.
Right.
I agree, and I think continuing that item might be a good idea because there's so much visual information that needs to come to you. I would definitely like to get the back windows approved. There's some work going on inside the house that we'd like to kind of move forward with. And so on the back windows, it seems like a situation where I need to get a little more documentation to staff, but if we're fine with the change in size, then we're going to match the existing windows as is. They're just going to be a little smaller.
On the door, do you want January or February?
January. That's
Okay.
fine.
I just thought I'd start
When do I?
checking a few things.
So knock 'em out.
We'll start knocking a few things out of here, and that'll make it easier to figure out what's left. So I'd like to make a motion on HPCA 14-00213, item number 4, to be continued to the January 7th meeting.
Second.
I have a motion to continue item number 4 to January 7th from Heather Clemmer, second by Ann Zackritz. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Great. Want to hit 6 and 7, relocated driveway and gate. Staff recommended approval.
I move to approve HPCA 14-00213, items 6 and 7, with the findings in the staff recommendation and section D of the staff report.
Do I have a second? Second. I have a motion from Joe Meacham to approve items 6 and 7. I have a second from Greg Eddington. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. 6 and 7 are approved. All right. Do we want to hit the item 3, replace the 2 windows?
Approve HPCA 14-00213, item 3. With the specific findings that the new window shall match all the characteristics of the historic window, including button pattern and profile, and the condition that additional specifications will be submitted to staff for approval to ensure true divided lights?
Yes.
So you could include specific finding number 2 still as a part of that motion?
Yep.
Then.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. Includes both findings with a condition.
Great. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion with condition for to approve item number 3 from Joe Meacham, second from Greg Eddington. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Great. So that brings us down to item 10, install new tile at front doors.
Is the stone material the same that's in the back?
I'm sorry.
Is the stone tile the stone material?
Actually, no, it is not. It will be. On the back, currently they have a bunch of stone that we're going to wind up removing and putting a new lawn in and new walkways, but that's down the road. And so what we're doing right now is where that dirt is right now, we'd like to just put the stone in to create a small patio.
It says it won't be visible from the right-of-way. I'm sorry, where is it going to be located?
This is going to be right in front of that location where the door that we've been talking about, the arched French doors, directly in front of that. So it's completely obscured by those bushes and everything else, as well as it's on the ground and raised about 5 feet in the air because of the grade.
I move to approve HPCA 1400213, item 10, with the findings in the staff recommendation in section D of the staff report.
Second.
A motion from Joe Meacham and a second from Ann Zacharitz to approve item number 10. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That item is approved.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you. Right. We have no other business. Communications and reports.
Several administrative approvals and withdrawals, and staff is happy to answer questions about any of those. Our nothing from City Council Board of Adjustment. Our appeal that has been going on for ever and ever is going back to the Board of Adjustment. They appealed their approval. That was remanded back to the Commission. Last month we denied their application, and now they're appealing the denial, so that will go to the Board of Adjustment tomorrow. And that's all.
Okay. Nothing for Planning Commission. Municipal Councilor. Our next meeting date, the next regularly scheduled meeting for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, January 7th at 2 p.m. in this chamber. New applications for this meeting were received yesterday. New information on projects continued from today's meeting to the upcoming meeting must be submitted by to staff by 4 p.m. on Tuesday, December 9th, 2014. Our next regularly scheduled workshop is February 11th, 2015 from 11:30 to 1:30 at 420 West Main, Suite 900. Any items from commissioners? Citizens to be heard are none. Right. So do we move to adjourn, or do I just adjourn? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.